care, lead, innovate, motivate, balance. These 5 tenets reveal ways of creating a more profitable and customer-centric pharmacy. What will you discover when you climb with RMS? Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Climb. I'm Brad Jones, the founder and CEO here at Retail Management Solutions, and with me today, as always, is our Director of Operations, my co-host, Brandon Bolesky, and Bebop is back.
He is, yeah. Good morning, Brad. She wanted me to tell you thank you very much for giving her this opportunity, and she promised that she would help take Climb to the next level. So as we get started here today, we have kind of a special event for Climb today, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we this last year has been, well, the last year and a half, of course, for this country and for around the world has been challenging, to say the least. And so today we're going to really be focusing on inspiration and motivation, which I think is timely. But before we get started with that, I think it's cool to kind of reflect on the last year and what it's been like. I know I am really proud to have produced a year worth of Climb. It's been really rewarding, and it's been inspirational to see all of these amazing people, pharmacy owners, industry experts, panelists that are, staff members, all these people come together to share information with each other. And that, as most of you probably know, I've been around pharmacy my whole life. And one of the things that I see Bebop's pretty happy right now. One of the things that I really have been inspired by is just the passion that people have in this industry. And I know I'm passionate about it. And it's really fun. It's fun to see people share. And so that, to me, is one of the great takeaways of this program.
Yeah. And, before we got started here, you and I were chatting about that. What are some of my personal highlights or our personal highlights, personal takeaways? And, for me, it was really surprising to see how impactful this Climb series has been for a lot of those patient care initiatives. We talked about several different patient care programs, and it's great because it's not only impactful and beneficial for the pharmacy as a pharmacy and as a business, but it's also a tremendous segue into actual patient care and making sure that their customers are getting the care and the attention that they need. And I think, we've been fortunate enough to draw a lot of attention to those types of programs that have benefits across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And back, you've got these amazing people that are current pharmacy owners that, have spoken and been panelists. And we have then former pharmacy owners that have come on the program and, shared their experiences and the things that were working for them. So it really has been a very rewarding experience.
So for today's conversation, we have some content that's a little bit different, right? You mentioned motivation and inspiration, and that's really what we're looking at today. So, coming up, we have Will Bowen, the founder of the Complaint-Free Movement and best-selling author. He'll be joining us to talk about, why complaints happen and how to stop them. We'll also be having a panel discussion today, right? That's kind of taking that topic to the next level, real world challenges and obstacles that pharmacies and business owners have been overcoming, and some of those takeaways and learning opportunities from within the last year. In addition to my special guest here, Brad, you have a couple personal guests joining us as well.
Yeah, I do. A couple of really close friends. The first one, if you're a sports fan, I have to believe you know this name, Colin Cowherd. He's been on ESPN Sports Radio and ESPN Network, as currently on the Fox Sports Network. He's best known for The Herd with Colin Cowherd, which is now in its 21st year on the air. And he's a funny guy. And so we're going to sit down and have a really cool conversation. Turning the tables, to be honest with you, where I'm interviewing a professional who does this every day of his career. So it's a little, it'll be fun. I'm excited about it. And then a name you probably don't know, Dr. Emily Johnston, but this is a name you're going to want to get to know. This is one of the most inspiring human beings on the planet as far as I'm concerned. She is absolutely amazing. And I would recommend you read her bio on our website. You can Google her and find her pretty easily as well. And I'm going to be chatting with her in just a moment.
Yeah, so also today, we have really a special announcement for our Climb Ascender Award. So we'll be doing that in a little bit here. We also have Climb, after Climb coming up. Today we'll be discussing some ideas around advanced gift with purchase. But before we get all back, before we move on to that, we'll be back in just a few seconds with Brad and Dr. Emily Johnston, and maybe
Bob
a little
wants to eat your microphone and microphone cable.
She said, "This is all you paid me for. Let's bring on Dr. Emily Johnston." So we'll be right back with that.
Welcome to Climb, Emily.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let me tell the audience a little bit about you. This is Dr. Emily Johnston, and Emily is a longtime friend. We actually met when we were 16 years old and ski raced together at Crystal Mountain here in Washington. I've asked Emily to join us because if you have not yet read her bio, it's a great read and it's worth the time to do it. So I'm going to just tell you a little bit about this amazing woman. Emily has climbed the six tallest mountains on each of 6 continents, excluding Australia. So yes, she's climbed Mount Everest, where she's also a certified guide, one of only 2 women in the world certified on Everest. She is a certified guide on Mount Rainier here in Washington and climbed it over 150 times, and also on Denali in Alaska. Emily, on her 40th birthday, invited her family, or had dinner with her family, and invited a few of her close friends, to which I'm honored to have been included, and announced that she had been accepted into the University of Washington School of Medicine, and she's currently an ER doc at all kinds of different places here in the United States. Currently working at Madigan here at Joint Base Lewis McChord. And if all of that's not enough, Emily works and trains special forces in various places here throughout the United States. So welcome again, Emily.
Thanks, Brad.
This is so much fun.
Yeah.
It's great to have you here.
Yeah.
CLIMB stands for Care, Lead, Innovate, Motivate, and Balance. And when I think about you, you could talk about every single one of those. You exemplify every single one of those daily in what you do in your life. So we don't have hours, unfortunately. so we're going to have to pick and choose a little bit. But I thought that when I think about business and when I talk to my employees about business, we talk a lot about you have to put yourself out there to succeed. So you have to fail. Failure is a part of success because you get it. You've got an idea. You have to put it out there and make it happen. And in pharmacy, they have to do these things all the time. So you are this successful doctor, and you're doing ER medicine, and then you're this avid mountain climber. And in both of those things, besides all these other things, but in both of those career paths, and you fail. I mean, failure is a part of pretty much daily. And so, how do you deal with that, and what do you do? How do you deal with that?
Well, there are a few ways to look at it. The word failure, it elicits an emotional response in a lot of people. That they feel bad. And so failure is just not achieving the goal that you set out to achieve at that time, right? So it doesn't make you a bad person. You just failed at your goal. And with climbing, it's a summit attempt, and that's what we tell people when we're guiding. So you're coming to Mount Rainier, we talk about everything, And we always refer to it as a summit attempt, because if you say it's a summit climb, then that's the absolute focus, and the focus is not the summit. The focus is getting there. And we always say safety first, and then fun. The summit is optional. Getting back down safely is mandatory. And so that's the key. And it's the whole experience. And there are people that have that summit or plummet mentality, and it just doesn't go well. That kind of target fixation will get you in trouble in terms of the decision making you use in order to get there. That can be problematic. So failing, and it's interesting because you'll climb near, we'll come back down, we'll be walking back down through Paradise, and there are like hundreds of tourists down there on a weekend, and we're coming down in our big boots and got our ice axes and ropes. Clearly we've been climbing, and there's so many people that ask, did you summit, did you summit, did you summit? And so you get used to saying, not this time, or just with a smile, it's like, nope, not today. And that's fine. And that's the key is, I think it's important to use appropriate decision making, and also focus on, I know it's kind of cliche, but the journey is the most important thing. And being in the alpine environment and working as a team and trying, and then making the right decision, come back down if you have to, that's failure. And that does happen in mountaineering all the time. And there are a lot of routes that have been tried multiple times and people have come back down. And at least in that community, amongst people that climb on a regular basis, we understand that you don't have to summit to succeed. And you have failed at that summit goal, but you haven't failed as a person or as a climber in any other way. And that's why it's kind of tough sometimes. People do get focused, particularly like the Seven Summits crew. They get very focused on summiting, which is fine as long as they're willing to go back a few times and keep working on it. So you can't have that emotional, when somebody says, failure, it's like, yeah, I failed at that. We're going to go up again next week or next year.
Well, it's also a definition of success, right? You have to define what success really means.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and success and failure aren't necessarily polar opposites either, because you can fail at summiting but still have a successful climb. In medicine, it's a little bit different. We say, I like to say, death is not the enemy, it just needs help with timing sometimes, right? Because
great attitude, that's
it's inevitable.
Yeah, right.
And we don't always get the outcome that we're looking for. We do the best that we can. And actually, I just gave a talk this morning to residents at Madigan at the Army Hospital where I work. And that's sort of one of the things I talked about was maintaining confidence in yourself and just putting yourself out there and doing the best possible job you can do. Because there are things you can't control. We can't save everybody. And we do the best that we can, and we gather as much information and apply ourselves as well as we possibly can. And you can't let an outcome that isn't what you hoped for, tear you apart. You can look back and see, well, what could we have done differently? If anything, you can learn from it, but you can't get attached to that. Maybe there's a treatment failure or something, it doesn't come out the way you wanted, but it's not, it doesn't reflect on you as a physician or as a person if you really put your heart into it and do your best.
That, I think, has to be easier said than done.
Well, yeah.
So how do you're teaching a lot.
Yeah.
At both in mountaineering and in ER medicine or in being a doctor. How do you teach that? And I'm sure you've had to counsel. So give us a little insight.
Yeah, so I think both of it, and that's something I was speaking this morning too, also about when I was speaking to the residents, was just separating your ego from the outcome. And when I was talking to them about providing feedback to each other and how difficult it can be to receive feedback, because even though that person who's giving you the feedback cares about you and your professional development, you still feel it in your heart first. Like there's an emotional response to feedback because we all want to be great at what we do. And so, but what you do is you recognize that emotional response, and that's your ego, that's your heart. And you just recognize, I'm feeling this way, and just take a breath, and then you want to respond rather than reacting. And it's the same thing. it can be tough when the outcome isn't what you'd hope for.
Right.
And so that, you have to make room for the emotional side, for the human side, for the heart, and have it be, it doesn't reflect on who you are. It was the performance, it was what happened at that one time, but you can't let it erode your confidence. And I think the best way for me has always been, at any particular moment in a medical situation, in the mountains, on the river, in a variety of situations, I try to think, am I giving it my everything? Is this everything I can do? Like, is there anything else should I bring somebody else in? What should I do? And if I really feel like I've been giving it my all, then I don't feel like a failure. The situation, I failed at achieving the goal, but I am not a failure if I'm doing my best. So that's one way, and that's how I counsel people also, is to just, try your hardest.
Sure. Well, and I think that when I think about that, when I see this in my own company, and we've been doing this now for 23 years, and I've worked with a lot of young people that I really encourage along the way to put themselves out there. And, they do fail from time to time. And I think that being a supportive leader, being a supportive, a boss, owner in the pharmacy world, same thing, you have to counsel and teach and, train your employees and not scream at them when something goes wrong and they fail, or there's a failure in what they're doing. But to counsel them and to help them grow from the experience and help them learn that it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to fail. Here's what we want to do next. And I had the opportunity years and years ago, early in my career, to meet Herb Keller, who was the founder of Southwest Airlines. And I got a chance to talk with him. And one of the things he was famous for, Southwest, was that employees were empowered to make decisions, and there would be no repercussions. Like what he said is, I don't want you to do something where you say, I have to go talk to my boss, or I have to get approval for this. Make the decision, because that's the last thing an angry customer wants. And if you make the wrong decision, you're not going to get in trouble, but we're gonna sit down with you and explain to you what we would have liked you to have done and why, and ask you to do that in the future. And I thought that impacted me a lot, because I really felt like that is the kind of leader I want to be. I wish I could say that I was that way every time. Karen and others here at RMS know that that's not the case.
So you failed,
but I failed a few times over the years, exactly. But always try to, get better, right?
Yeah.
And listen. I think that's another key. So it makes me think about one of the things that I think we hear about doctors, and I know I've experienced this back in the day with my mom. Horrible experience with was supposed to be one of the top neurosurgeons in the country, and he was not a good person. Do you talk? I assume. Do you talk about that with students and
about interacting
and bedside manner and things of that nature?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I was talking about this morning, was just how people will judge you. They'll look at you and they will judge you according to your affect, your gender, the color of your skin, your perceived sexual orientation, cultural cues, jewelry, tattoos, how you hold yourself. People will judge you immediately, and you need to be aware of that. And it won't be fair. So don't expect it to be fair. So as a physician, your job is to not to teach them that I'm a woman and I'm strong and smart, or I'm a person of color, and I'm strong and smart. Your job is to actually have the interaction and provide the best possible patient care, but at the same time you need to hold those boundaries. So that's an interesting sort of conundrum there. People will look at you, they will judge you, and they will act towards you in a certain way based on their whole, that impression is real to them. And it's based on their entire experience. Maybe I remind them of their crazy Aunt Millie. I mean, who knows, right? And so having those interactions come out successfully is a real skill. It's a real skill, being, succeeding at that, establishing that doctor-patient relationship, or the business relationship, or the relationship between, the boss and the boss and the employee. Like, that is so important, and that's something that you can take into every day of your life, is trying to succeed, trying to not fail at your relationships with everybody that you interact with on a daily basis, and recognizing your own biases, which are deep-seated.
Yeah. Well, I think that's another thing that we talk a lot about, and we talk about it at Climb. I talk about it in the company, or we talk about it as a company, but it's making these interactions not transactional but personal, because we're all human beings, and we all react better to personal interactions than we do to transactional interactions. And in fact, I got an email this morning. I was in a meeting this morning. One of the individuals on the other end of the phone was pretty much a jerk. And I got an email from the gentleman that was heading up the meeting with an apology. And he said, you're such a personable individual, and I really enjoyed working with you, and I'm sorry that the meeting kind of took the turn that it did. And it felt good to hear that, because I think that that's what here at RMS we always try to do with our customers, and that's what we talk about in Climb, to help suggest, and we bring speakers in to talk about that specific topic. Don't make transactions transactional, make them personal, and that always seems to make the difference. And I think that experience that we had years and years ago with my mom's neurosurgeon was very transactional. He had no interpersonal skills, and it really had a hugely negative impact on our experience, which was already stressful. Right?
Yeah, totally.
So, speaking of being judged, you told me that the very first time, so Emily, as I said earlier, trains special forces, and so you told me a story years ago when we were talking about this, and I was laughing at the irony in this, but you told me, I think, quote unquote, I walked in and they're looking at me like, who's this hippie chick?
Totally.
So, you were judged immediately. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm judged immediately. I'm judging them too, because it's these young, super driven guys, and so I'm kind of expecting something from them, and they're expecting something from me. And that happens on a regular basis, where I walk in and I'm obviously the other in the room. There's no question about that, right? So, yeah. I mean, there's like, who is this old lady? Who is this old hippie chick, right? Because I look like I do now. I don't I don't dress up in any way. But, I think in that particular situation, my strategy is always just to come in like even, unflappable. That's not the moment to prove anything. That's just the moment to like do my best. I have information that is helpful to them, and it doesn't take long. I mean, I've never had a bad interaction. We always establish a relationship within a short period of time and realize that we both have things to share with each other. But realizing the impression you make on people when you walk in, you sense how they feel about you. And that's where I say be the golden retriever, because dogs have such a great, they know what we're going to do before we do it, right? They've been living with us for like 20,000 years. There's a reason why we keep them in our homes and we feed them, because they get it, And so that's like be the golden retriever in the room, which helps, kind of look like a golden retriever. But, and, have that emotional sense and intelligence to have sort of the emotional back and forth. The other thing is to just, not take it personally. You can't take it personally. And it's also like what we're talking about failure too. Like, you can't take it personally, and you can take it personally, but it's better not to. And how someone judges you, if you take it personally, well, one, they don't know me from, anybody. So any kind of judgment they have about me is based on really nothing, on their prior experience, but it's not about me. And if I take it personally and get emotional about it, that's my ego getting in the way. So instead, you don't take it personally, and if you cannot take it personally, then you can respond rather than reacting. And I think that helps quite a bit, is don't take it personally, and also don't let it erode your confidence, because if you're thinking, oh, I'm under the microscope, or, as a doctor, you walk in a room and they look at you and you can tell that they're not, that you're not what they expected as a doctor. Or maybe they expected a tall white male or something, and I walk in. That can erode your confidence and impede your performance if you don't just take a breath and realize, I'm not going to take this personally. I'm not going to let it erode my confidence. I belong here.
Well, and I think that's really important to talk about is don't take it personally.
Oh, yeah.
And again, that's an easier said than done, but what I think, we talk about it a lot here at RMS because, we're doing online, or we're doing support over the telephone.
Yeah.
You don't know what's happening at the other end of that conversation. You don't know that there's, 10 people deep in line at the pharmacy and 3 crying kids, and you don't know. You don't know the stress that person's under. And so it's important to recognize that, there's all kinds of things happening that you aren't aware of, and that are causing people to behave in a way they may never have behaved in or don't normally behave. But I think that the key is you have to talk about it. You have to train on it. You have to teach your employees that. And the same goes in pharmacy, honestly. You have young people working there, or even if they're not young people, you still have to talk about the importance of, you don't know what the bad news that this person got, or what's causing them to be frustrated or angry, that that they're lashing out at you as you're filling the prescription, or you're trying to help them, and learning not to take things personally, I think, is a really important part of offering outstanding customer service, whether it be a doctor or wherever you are.
Right. And success, even if it is, like, maybe that person didn't even have a bad day. Maybe it's just a mean person, but it's not your fault that that's a mean person, and it doesn't diminish you at all. You're still just as great at your job, and that person maybe is, for whatever reason, and that's the thing, is to separate it out, to have a successful interaction. What you don't want to do is take the bait. You don't want to take the bait. They're grumpy, it's okay. You can just be yourself, be even and level, and let it go. And that's the hard part, is not taking it personally. But that helps, like we were talking about failure before, you don't take that personally either. If you fail, it's not because, and even if you fail because you made a mistake, it's like, well, okay, I'm going to learn from that. And you can't let it tear yourself down. You have to. Right. Yeah.
And I think that's an important point, because it can really become just really self-defeating the moment that you do that.
Right, and then that's the worst neurohormonal environment for performance. When you're like on your heels, you're lacking your confidence, and you're doubting yourself, you don't perform well in that situation. And so that's where, even if things are going sideways and not, it's you're climbing, this weather came in, something happened that you didn't expect, and the wheels are falling off a little bit, that's when you need to be on your game. That's when you need to take your own pulse and make sure that it's nice and low and you're even, so that you can perform the best possible way. And that's true, I'm sure, in business and in these interactions with between customers and everything.
Sure. Well, I think it's all part of planning, right? I mean, when you go to climb, you have a plan. When you go as a doctor, you walk into the room with a plan. Well, you learn what's going on and you create a plan, right? I mean, I know from my experience in flying, when I was a pilot in the Air Force, we had a plan for everything. Flying is easy. Taking off and landing is easy. It's dealing with the emergency that happens during those critical parts of flight that make the difference between whether people live or die. And that's handled by training. And I think in business it's the same thing. Having a plan for all kinds of different scenarios, being ready for a pandemic. I don't think
we're right. Next time.
Next time. But having have modeled and having practiced and trained and for all kinds of different situations or outcomes, I mean, that's the way to be successful.
Yeah, and I teach whitewater guide training also. And when you run whitewater, you scout the rapid from the bottom up. Because if there's not an exit on some route that you scouted when you get to the bottom, then you just wasted your time starting at the top. So you scout from the bottom up. You have plan A, plan B, plan C. Because, the boat bumps off a rock and it pushes you the other direction. And there's no pause button. you're in the whitewater, so there's no pause button. So you're like, okay, I didn't mean to be on the right-hand side, but here I am. So you got a plan, you got all of your contingency plans. You have to.
Yeah, and I'm surprised, in all these years, you and I have whitewater together, and I've been on over 30 whitewater
That's
rafting
right.
trips. And,
Okay, we'll have to change
a couple
that.
down the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
I've only been out of the boat once on the Marciani River in Nepal.
Oh, wow.
We were on a 5-day trip, and the raft I was in flipped, and I got cycled a couple of times.
Sounds awful.
It was awful. You can't tell what the hell's even going on. You don't know what's ups, down, or anything else. I came up and boom, under the water. I think I'm gonna drown, back up, and then boom, under the water. Yeah, it was crazy. But there was one of the passengers on the trip was cycled 7 times, so I was like cycled two or three. But they had a plan, and we had, because it was the nature of the river, they had a bunch of whitewater rafting kayakers, expert kayakers, right there. And although it took a little bit of time to get to the woman that was getting pulled under, but it was all part of a plan, right? And we had scouted that, and our 3 boats made it through, and one, I think the guy made a mistake, but whatever. We all went out, right? And nobody got hurt. A few people got shaken up, but I think again back to it's just there's a game plan.
Yeah, well, you hope for success and you plan for failure.
Yeah.
Yeah, in everything.
Right.
And that's crucial, and that is planning ahead, and also like realizing where your weaknesses are, and then planning for that, and that's a tough one, because we all have weaknesses, and if you can identify and embrace your own weaknesses, then you're more likely to have that backup plan that suits you. Because when you fail at plan A, then maybe you can succeed at plan B or C or D or E.
Sure.
Our next guest today is Will Bowen. Will Bowen is the founder of the complaint-free movement with over 12 million followers worldwide. He's been featured by Oprah, Dr. Oz, Forbes, NBC's Today Show, The Wall Street Journal, and so many more. His book, A Complaint-Free World, has sold more than 3 million copies worldwide, and his complaint-free program has been used by thousands of companies to increase productivity, improve communication, and raise morale. We are very excited to have him here today. Welcome, Will Bowen.
Will Bowen is the founder of the Complaint-Free Movement, which has improved the lives of more than 12 million people worldwide. Will Bowen has been featured on Oprah,
Focus on what's going on good in your life.
NBC's Today Show, CBS Sunday Morning, the ABC World News Tonight, 60 Minutes, and Fox News Channel. Thousands of newspaper and magazine articles around the world have been written about Will, including People Magazine, Newsweek, Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, O Magazine, Self Magazine, and Chicken Soup for the Soul. Will Bowen is an in-demand speaker and trainer who travels the world working with top executives and their employees. Will personally presented his 6 millionth complaint-free bracelet to Dr. Maya Angelou, who provided the foreword for his book, A Complaint-Free World, How to Stop Complaining and Start Enjoying the Life You Always Wanted. That book has sold nearly 4 million copies in more than 30 languages. Will Bowen is the author of 5 books, a #1 international best-selling author, a multi-#1 Amazon best-selling author, an award-winning speaker, the 2016 Purdue University Executive in Residence, and Will Bowen is the world authority on complaining, what causes it, why we do it, and how to get ourselves and others to stop. Please welcome to the stage, Will Bowen.
Hi everyone at Retail Management Solutions. It's an honor to be part of your Climb event. I love the theme, climb, care, lead, innovate, motivate, balance. Great words for the times that we're going through. And I know that this pandemic has hit you all hard because First of all, you're on the front lines of everything. I mean, literally, trying to dispense things, trying to help people stay healthy, trying to keep accurate information in front of people. But you were busy before the pandemic, and now all of a sudden you're so much busier. And I just want to honor you and to celebrate you and all that you're going through and all of the changes that are happening in your industry. And Amazon talking about getting into the prescription business and all these changes and all of these things. It's been tough times, but I do believe you're going to climb your way to the top through it, through caring, leading, innovating, motivating, and balancing. And I'm honored to be here with you, to be in some way a small part of making that happen for you. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that when you saw my introduction, you laughed when you saw that I was the world authority on complaining. It's okay. Don't worry. Everybody does. I never set out to be the world authority on complaining. I wanted to play the drums for KISS. It just didn't quite work out my way. I tried to figure out how this became as big as it has become. And let me give you a little history of how this all started. In 2006, I was the minister of a small church in Kansas City, Missouri, and I was doing a talk on prosperity. And it occurred to me, now this was pre-pandemic, pre-housing crisis, everything, that at that time, we were living in the healthiest, wealthiest time in human history. And yet, people complained incessantly about everything. Do you know the average person complains 15 to 30 times every single day, and they have no awareness they're doing it? Complaining is like bad breath. You notice it when it comes out of somebody else's mouth, but not so much when it comes out of your own. So I was doing this series on prosperity. And when you ask people about, do you want to be prosperous? Ask yourself, do you want to be prosperous? Of course you want to be more prosperous. You're at this conference. That's part of the motivation for doing it, is to become more prosperous, to figure out more ways to become more prosperous. And when you ask people, what is prosperity? Most people say, more. I want more. Give me more. More money, more time, more resources, more opportunities, more. And Wayne Dyer put it so well when he said, if you're unhappy with what you have, why in the world would you want more? So my idea was to try, before I taught people spiritual practices to attract prosperity, I wanted to teach them how to appreciate what they have. You know, the opposite of complaining is gratitude. It's gratitude. So I wanted to make them aware of how often they complained, so the gratitude would automatically be ramped up, because the less they complained, the more grateful they would become. Now, have you heard of this idea? I know you have, everybody has. That if you do something for 21 consecutive days, it'll become a habit. Yeah, I had heard that too. So my idea was to inspire my congregation to try and go 21 days in a row without complaining. I know it sounds crazy. It probably was. But then it occurred to me, how would you know what day you're on? If your goal is to go 21 consecutive days without complaining, how would you know what day you're on? Nobody's gonna make it immediately, right? And back then, everyone was wearing those yellow bracelets. Remember back in 2006, everybody was wearing these yellow bracelets? Do you remember what they're for? Livestrong, that's right, Lance Armstrong's nonprofit. And it occurred to me that if you had something like that, you put it on your wrist, and every time you catch yourself complaining, no, you don't snap it. You don't do violence to yourself to try and improve yourself. This is a mindfulness tool. This is not a cause bracelet. You take it off your wrist, you move it to the other wrist, and you start over again on this side, back on day 1. You're on day 1, day 2, day 13, whatever, you switch it, you're back on day 1. Your goal is to go 21 days in a row without switching the bracelet. And I know that sounds crazy, but we have had literally thousands of people all over the world who have stayed with this and done it. And it's so inspiring. Well, that weekend, we handed out 250 of these bracelets. That's how many people we had come to church over the weekend. And within a week, people had taken up all the excess supply. We bought 500, we gave away 250 within days, actually. People wanted them for their Girl Scout group, their 4th grade class, their chiropractic office, their car dealership, their realty company. People wanted everyone to take this 21-day complaint-free challenge, to put the bracelet on your wrist and switch it, and everybody was going to do it. And within 30 days, we had requests for 9,000 bracelets. And this was pre-Twitter, pre-Facebook, pre-smartphones, no social media, no nothing. This was simply one person telling another person. The idea literally exploded underneath our feet. I didn't create this. I'm not that smart. This created me. And I'm very, very fortunate to have this opportunity to share what I have learned studying complaining and complainers over the last 15 years. One thing I want to get very clear with you as we're getting started, and that is that I am not here to tell you to shut up and suck up whatever the world sends your way. I'm here to try and teach you healthy communication skills. More importantly, you deal with complaints and complainers more than anybody, especially nowadays. So I want to give you tools and resources to understand what the complaints really are about and to be able to handle them by giving you things you can say back to people. Now, you're going to be so tempted as we talk to take notes. You're welcome to do that. That's cool. Or if you look down beneath me, it says you can get a free complaint-free toolkit by texting my name in. What's a complaint-free toolkit? We'll tell you more about it later. But it's a bracelet, complaint-free bracelet. We'll actually send you one. And it's an ebook that's a synopsis of the presentation I'm giving you. So I want to invite you mostly to be present with me today. So I tried to figure out how in the world a Sunday talk by an obscure Missouri minister became what 60 Minutes called a worldwide phenomenon. And I think I figured it out. It's for 2 reasons. Take a look at the screen. Number 1, there's too much complaining in the world. If you agree, say yes out loud. Yeah, exactly. And number 2, the world isn't the way we would like it to be. If you agree with that, say yes out loud. All right. Here's what I discovered, friends. The 2 are correlated. We are so busy talking about, complaining about, focusing on, putting our negative attention on what is wrong, that we perpetuate what is wrong. And at some level we know this. And we are seeking some sort of a collective healing from it so we can begin to focus on and build on what is right and what is working. And nowadays, that is more important than ever because there's so many things that are going wrong. And if our focus is on what's going wrong, we're going to perpetuate what is going wrong. Now, let me get very elemental here with you because I find there's some confusion. Complaining, the dictionary defines, to express grief, pain, or discontent. So, by its very definition, a complaint must be expressed. It must be spoken, it must be typed, texted, any sort of a way of conveyance to another person. it must be expressed. People, whenever I do a live event, we give bracelets out, and invariably I get some overachiever who says, oh, I'm going to switch my bracelet with every negative thought. And I always think, good luck with that. Because we think on average 45,000 thoughts a day. And let me ask you a question. Are most of our thoughts positive or negative? Be honest. Just say it out loud. The answer is negative. That's right. We have what's called a negativity bias that actually keeps us alive. However, it also causes us to complain. We want to catch the words that come out of our mouths, and as we do, as we begin to speak more positively, the thoughts in our heads will also change. The two are in a loop. This is a core concept I want to make sure you get, especially with your pharmacies. It is not complaining to speak directly and only to the person who can resolve the issue. It is not complaining to speak directly and only to the person who can resolve the issue. If someone gets poor service, has a problem with your pharmacy, etc., and they come in and talk to an associate, a manager, you, whatever, that's not complaining. They may do it in an angry way, but what they're asking for is a request for accountability. They are requesting accountability. And if they are angry or if they are rude, it's still not complaining. It shows they have bad social skills because there's nice ways to ask. But what happens is we tend to get defensive and all I have to do is listen to complaints all day. Well, you're listening to complaints about your business, right? Yes. Well, it's not complaints. It's a request for accountability. Keep that in mind. Eckhart Tolle put it so well. He says, complaining is not to be confused with informing someone of a mistake or a deficiency so that it can be put right. And to refrain from complaining doesn't necessarily mean putting up with bad quality or behavior. Eckhart goes on to say, there is no ego in telling the waiter your soup is cold and needs to be heated up. If you stick to the facts, which are always, look at the screen, what are facts? Neutral, that's exactly right. Facts are always neutral. He concludes by saying, how dare you serve me cold soup? That's complaining. When I was a boy, my family and I would go out for dinner on Sundays, and invariably the server would come over and ask how our meal was, and my mother in her beautiful southern drawl would say, just fine. Everything good? Just fine. Everything to your liking? Just fine. Well, as soon as the server would walk away, my mother would look at me and my brothers and say things like, you know, I ordered my tea sweet and this is unsweet. And one time she said, you know, I ordered my steak medium and this is about burnt. And my little brother couldn't have been more than 7. And he looked at her and said, Mama, do you see a waiter outfit on me? Who should my mother have been talking to? The server. So my question for you is, who should you be talking to instead of whomever you're complaining to? Before the pandemic, I went to speak in Denver, Colorado, and the driver who took me to the hotel said, you're staying in the nicest hotel in Denver. And he was right, it's beautiful. I lay down to go to sleep that night about 10 o'clock, and I hear this noise on the other side of the bedroom wall, the hotel room wall. And the noise is going, squeak, 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 squeak. No, it's not what you're thinking. I thought the same thing too. It just went on for way too long. And so I finally got up and I looked out the window and I realized that my room was on the 5th floor of the hotel and the building next door was only 5 stories high. That building had a big exhaust fan on top with a rusty spot. And every time it would spin around, squeak, squeak, squeak. So what does the no complaining guy do in a situation like this? Well, I went downstairs and I told them at the front desk, and they put me in a gorgeous suite on the other side of the hotel. But you know what I would have done in the past? I would have called my mother. Can you believe this? Finest hotel in Denver. I'll show them. I'll stay in the room. That's what we do. We stay in rooms, we stay in situations, we stay in lives that we don't like, simply because we don't speak directly and only to the person who can resolve our issue. So what's wrong with complaining? Complaining has real hard bottom line costs to it. I'm going to share with you the results of a study of 1,400 U.S. employees. It's just a few pages of numbers. Don't let them freak you out. 78% of U.S. employees waste 4.5 hours every week sitting around listening to a coworker complain. So when you run those numbers, it comes out to, with 100 employees, you're losing approximately $500,000 every single year. 100 employees, $500,000 a year. Now this is my scary slide. Here we go. This is my Halloween slide. 1 out of every 10 employees in this country who quit their job quit because of the negativity of complaining coworkers. Think about that. And why is this the scary slide? This is the scary slide because these are your best people. It's your best people that leave because of the negativity of other people. It is your complainers and your bad quality employees who hang around and go, phew. It's a bunch of Eeyores that go, wow, we got rid of another Winnie the Pooh, good. We don't need that positivity, but good employees can go and work anywhere. For them, corporate culture is more important than anything. That's why when complaining takes over a business, it'll destroy the business. And finally, 3/4 of U.S. employees said they would refuse a better job with a $10,000 raise if they had to work alongside a complainer. Complaining has some real hard costs to it. Have you ever noticed that complaining is a competitive sport? That one person always tries to out-complain someone else? That someone will complain and then someone always has to complain higher and bigger and worse, etc.? I was supposed to go scuba diving on Sunday. I live down in Key Largo, Florida. And Friday, I'm supposed to go scuba diving. And I messed up some nerves in my neck or some vertebrae in my neck, so I'm not going to go diving. So I texted my dive buddy and told him I couldn't make it. And then he starts telling me that he had fallen down and broken several ribs, etc. And I went, you win. You totally win. Complaining always goes in degrees of higher severity. That's why when complaining takes over an organization, it can destroy it. We want to create a complaint-free zone instead. And complaining keeps your focus on the problem. You're focused on the problem, so you perpetuate the problem. My favorite story about this is 2 construction workers sit down for lunch one day, and the first one looks in his lunchbox and goes, oh, you gotta be kidding me. His buddy says, what's wrong? He says, I got a meatloaf sandwich for lunch today. The second guy says, what's wrong with that? He says, I hate meatloaf. Second day, the same 2 guys sit down for lunch. First guy opens his lunchbox, looks inside and says, you've got to be kidding me. His buddy says, what's wrong? He says, I got another meatloaf sandwich. That's 2 days in a row. Third day, same 2 guys sit down and they open their lunch boxes, and this time the first guy opens his box, pulls out his sandwich and crushes it. He says, I've had it. I've had it. Day in and day out, it's the same darn thing. I want something different. And his buddy goes, hey man, why don't you ask your wife to make you something different? And the first guy goes, I make my own lunch. Now, if you get nothing else I say today, let it be an understanding that you make your own lunch by the thoughts that you think, but evidenced to the world by the words that you speak. Complaining keeps your focus on the problem, and complaining damages your health. There've actually been a lot of studies done about this. Complaining increases this release of cortisol in your bloodstream. And you know what cortisol can do. Cortisol is the stress hormone. It can mess with your metabolism. It can give you, make it hard to sleep. It can give you high blood pressure, heart attack, even a stroke. Cortisol is bad stuff. And people who complain frequently have much higher levels of cortisol, which makes sense. If you're walking around saying, this is bad, I don't like this, I'm complaining, your body goes into fight or flight mode because it thinks you're under attack. And so it releases the cortisol. One of the studies I thought was most interesting was they noticed emotional symptoms of people who complain chronically. And they gave these symptoms to doctors and said, here are the symptoms. They tend to be irritable, forgetful, lack creative thinking, struggle to get along with other people. And the doctors came back and said, Alzheimer's disease. Chronic complainers mimic the same issues as Alzheimer's disease. So complaining is bad for your health, and complaining destroys relationships. Complaining to somebody just lowers the energy in the relationship. It drags the energy down. Many people have told me that, they come home from work and it seems like their spouse thinks their ears are dumpsters, just that they can and then this happened and then that happened and this happened. And both men and women do this. I remember when I was, my daughter was little. She was like 5 or 6. And we were sitting at the dinner table, just about to eat. And she said, how was your terrible day today, Daddy? I had so gotten used to just telling my family everything that was wrong at the end of the day, instead of sharing the good things. Because, if you haven't recognized it already, every day of your life, something's going to go wrong. Something. And if that's what you focus on, you're going to bear the results of that. But every day of your life, something good's going to happen. And if we focus on what is good, we perpetuate more of what is good. So, excuse me, complaining costs money, is a competitive sport, keeps your focus on the problem, damages health, destroys relationships. Why do we do it? This is what I was hired to come and teach you. I'm about to share with you 5 things that are going to change your life. I mean that sincerely if you play with me as we do this, because you deal with complaints and complainers. I want to teach you how to work with complainers and stop dealing with complaints. People only complain for 5 reasons. I'm going to teach you those 5 reasons, and I'm going to teach you 5 things to say in response. Now, for you to really learn them during our brief time together, wherever you are, when I ask you to, we're going to do a little call and response, like we're in church, okay? I'm going to ask you to say something out loud. Why? Because wherever you are, if you say it out loud, you'll be far more likely to remember it long term, okay? So you're going to play? Good. Here we go. People complain for only 5 reasons, as remembered by the acronym GRIPE. People complain to G, say it out loud. What does the G in gripe stand for? Look at the screen. That's right, get attention. Hey, notice me. Please notice me. People want to be noticed. I was speaking to the human resource professionals in Toronto, Canada a few years back, and it was a really big event. And so rather than have me bring books in to sell, they got the local Chapters bookstore, which is like the Canadian version of Barnes & Noble back when Barnes & Noble was everywhere. And they invited them to come in and set up a bookstore for me with my 5 books that I've written. And right before I was about to go on stage, I'm talking to the manager of the bookstore and I said, how's your store do? He says, we're the #1 chapter store in all of Canada. And I said, really? And you want to take this in mind, being a retail pharmacy, all right? I said, really? Are you in a great location? No, we're in a bad location. You in a wealthy area of town? No. Easy to find your store? Hard to find my store. How do you do it? I asked. He said, I have a rule that if a customer comes into my store, any associate who comes within 10 feet of that customer must stop what they're doing, look the customer in the eye and say, hi. No, your screen's not frozen. I just wanted to show you that I stared at him like you're staring at me. And I said, and he goes, there is no and. He said, if you're in my store for 20 minutes, you'll be greeted on average 16 times. I look at the closed circuit camera just to see. I said, 16 times? Doesn't that make people feel like you're trying to sell them something? He said, we are trying to sell them something. We're a bookstore. We're trying to help people purchase, and we're giving them the number one thing people need, which is the G in gripe. Tell me again what it is. Get attention, that's right. So here's what you want to say when you've got someone complaining just to get attention. You want to ask them, what's going well with whatever? If they're complaining about the store, you would say, what do you like about our store? What brings you to our store? Etc., etc. You want to practice a little bit of verbal jujitsu on people. My uncle owned a hardware store, and there was one guy that everybody always went to. They skipped all the other clerks to talk to this guy because what he did was he preset these people to be in a good mood. Willie never said, his name was Willie. Willie never said, hey, how's it going? What'd you come in for? Or anything like that. Willie always said, what's the good word? What's the good word? And it put people in a good mood. So remember, people complain to G. What's the G stand for before I change the slide? Get attention, that's right. Now tell me, what does the R stand for? Yes, the R stands for remove responsibility. People complain simply to be removed of responsibility. You've seen this. You give somebody a task, they don't want to look you in the eye and tell you they're not going to do it. So what they do instead is they complain about all the circumstances surrounding the task so that you will let them off the hook. They simply want to be let off the hook. So you want to keep this person on the hook. You want to make sure that they stay on the hook, that they are responsible for what it is you ask. Because what they're going to do is they're going to tell you an excuse, a rational. I like to say people rationalize. They tell you rational lies until you stop making them do what it is they don't want to do. So they'll say, well, I'd like to do it, but this. And then you have to deal with that. And then what else they got? More? Right, of course. Something else, something else, something else. And eventually you just let the person off the hook. Well, here's what you want to say. Look at the screen. If it were possible, how might you do it? If it were possible, how might you do it? This puts the person into a possibility mindset. And it also reminds them, if it were possible, how might you do it? Not me, you. How might you do it? So before I change the screen, tell me, the G in gripe stands for get attention, that's right. The R in gripe stands for remove responsibility, yes. And the I in gripe stands for inspire envy. People complain because in our culture, it is considered rude to brag. In every culture, it's considered rude to brag. But people can complain about their good fortune or complain to get a positive, make them look better compared to somebody else as a way of inspiring envy, bragging. Let's say, for example, you decide to hold a store-wide meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning and everybody's there. And then Tom, one of your employees, says, you know, we could start this meeting, but Julie's not here as usual. And everybody, Is Tom trying to tell you that Julie is not there? No. Tom is trying to tell you that he is there. Tom wants you to acknowledge his presence being there. So what you want to do is what I call, look at the screen, complement the opposite. That's right. You complement the opposite of what the person is saying. So in this case, if Tom says, well, we could start this meeting, but Julie is late as usual, what you want to say is, you know what I like about you, Tom? You're always on time. That silences the person. It gets them from doing it over and over again. Compliment the opposite of whatever they're complaining about, and they will stop complaining. Does that make sense? Good. All right, so tell me now, before I change the slide, the G in gripe stands for get attention, that's right. The R in gripe stands for remove responsibility. The I in gripe stands for inspire envy. And here we go, look at the screen. The P in gripe stands for power. That's right, power. People complain to have power over other people. You know, the source of all politics is complaining. You will never see a politician say, you know, everything's going great in Washington. Don't you agree? I'd like you to elect me to go up there and help them keep everything just the way it is. No, they got to have a big thing to complain about. And they've got to say, you know, I'm the only one that can fix it. They're skunks, they're scallywags, they got to go, and I'm the solution. So elect me. It's always about power. When I was a kid, I was the middle of 3 boys. We ended up with the same hairstyle, as a matter of fact. We got together one time at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and somebody went, oh, look, there's the Blue Man Group on vacation. But I would always complain to my mother because I was the middle child. I was the Jan Brady of the bunch. And I would complain to my mom, Mom, Chuck and Dave won't play with me. Like that was going to help. And my mother would always say the same thing. I love you all, but I'm Switzerland. What does that mean, Switzerland? We had the World Book. We didn't have Google, but we had a World Book when I was a kid, so I looked it up. Switzerland, a neutral country. And that's what you want to do, especially at work. This is how this tends to show up. You got one person sniping about another person, and they're trying to build an alliance, right? Now, unless this is a major HR thing or something like this, this is your solution. Look what's on the screen. It sounds like the two of you have a lot to talk about. Sounds like the two of who? The two of you. That's exactly right. Which means not me. Sounds like the two of you have a lot to talk about. And if you'd like, I'll arrange a meeting. The thing that tends to happen is we step in. Well, let me try, and all of a sudden you become a counselor between people. That's not your role. Yogi Berra, the great baseball manager, said, getting great players is easy. Getting them to play together, well, that's the hard part. And that's your job. And one of the things you can do, the most important thing is, don't take on their issues and don't become a power broker with your power being sold for the price of a complaint. Sounds to me like the two of you have a lot to talk about. So before I change the slide, we're down to the very last one. The G in gripe stands for get attention. That's right. The R in gripe stands for remove responsibility. Yes. The I in gripe stands for inspire envy, which is another way of saying brag. The P in gripe stands for power. And the E, everybody look at the screen if you would, stands for excuse poor performance. Excuse poor performance. Now, the interesting thing is that the E, excuse poor performance, is the past tense of the R, remove responsibility. Here's what I mean. In remove responsibility, you give somebody a task that they don't want to do it, they don't do a good job, and then as a result, they don't want to do it, and so they complain to be let off the hook so that you won't make them actually do the task. Well, in excuse poor performance, they've done the task, but they haven't done a very good job. And they're not going to look you in the face and say, you know, this was totally my fault. I botched this. Oh, no, 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 no. They're going to complain about, Mars was in retrograde and it was raining this morning and they didn't have their regular breakfast. Whatever they can tell you to try and get you to let them off the hook. You want to continue to hold them and keep them on the hook. And here's the question. Take a look at the screen. This is magic. I use this with all of my employees. How do you plan to improve next time? Now, why do you say, how do you plan to improve next time? Why not address this time? Because exactly like before, when you're trying to hold this person accountable, everything they bring up and why didn't you think about this? Why didn't you plan for this? Why didn't you, anticipate this? Or why didn't you take this into account? Everything they bring up that you turn around and come back with, they're going to have an excuse. It's like excuse on top of excuse on top of excuse. So you tell them very clearly, how do you plan to improve next time? Now, why next time? I'll tell you why. Because nobody's ever defensive about next time. How do you plan to improve next time? All right. We're about to take the big test. You ready? Let me see how you do. I want you to look at the screen. Don't look at your notes. Look at me and tell me. The G in gripe stands for get attention. That's right. The R in gripe stands for remove responsibility. Yes. The I in gripe stands for inspire envy. Yes. The P in gripe stands for power. Yes. And the E stands for excuse poor performance. Give yourselves a round of applause. You know it. That is awesome. I want to invite you to take the complaint-free challenge. I want you to get one of our complaint-free bracelets. I want you to lead in your organization, in your pharmacy, by putting this on your wrist, and every time you catch yourself complaining, switching it to the other wrist. And as you've been able to see all along the screen, all you got to do is text my name, Will Bowen, to 64600. We will send you a complaint-free bracelet. We will send you an ebook, which is a synopsis of my presentation. I also do a daily live video, which we'll send you a link to every single day. You don't have to keep watching. You can cancel at any time. There's no price. This is all part of my wanting to make a lasting impact for your organization, for the Retail Management Solutions CLIMB event. So I'm going to conclude. I'm going to stay around with you, by the way, and do some Q&A here, but I want to share with you the 3 most common questions people ask me. Number 1, how do we get you to come and speak to our other organization or to our group or whatever? It's very simple. You see down there it says acomplaintfreeworld.org. acomplaintfreeworld.org. Go there, and if you click on speaking, you'll find out more information about me and hiring me or one of my trainers to come and speak. The second most common question is, man, we want some of these bracelets. We want our whole pharmacy to take this. We have a complaint-free business program that you can get. It's less than $50, and it's wonderful. We've had so many businesses use this program. And you can, again, go to acomplaintfreeworld.org. But hands down, the most common question people still ask me is, what is Oprah like? It's so funny. Right after I finished doing my segment that day, she leaned over and she patted me on the arm and she said, Pastor Will, which is what she calls me, she says, I have nothing to complain about. And I really thought about that. And what came to my mind was, of course not. You're Oprah Winfrey, for goodness sake. What are you going to complain about? You're one of the richest, most powerful people in the world. And my poker face really wasn't working very well because I was like this. And she said, no, you missed the point. Oprah said, it's not because I have everything that I have and that's why I don't complain. Oprah said, I don't complain. And that's why I have everything that I have. You see, Oprah gets that she makes her own lunch. And so do you. Certainly this is a crazy time, a stressful time, a difficult time. And if you contextualize it that way with your words, you're going to perpetuate it. Use words of hope, use words of optimism, use words of belief, use words of faith. Not only does Oprah make her own lunch, but you make your own lunch as well. So make it a magnificent buffet and share it with our world.
With NutriButler by RMS, serve your patient's health on a silver platter. Help improve patient outcomes, integrate therapy recommendations, increase your supplement sales, and create happy, healthy, loyal customers.
Well, Will, welcome. Thank you so much for that terrific presentation. That was wonderful.
My pleasure, my honor. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And this is our anniversary, first year anniversary. We've had a lot of fun with this. It's great to have great content, great speakers, and we really do appreciate you taking the time to be with us. I do have a couple of extra questions for you, though.
Wonderful. Look forward to it.
So, in the business world, we get customers complaining. We also have our staff that complains. Do you have a standard reply for people that are complaining, maybe in both of those situations?
I really do. And I can't take credit for this. I got it from a wonderful book called A Complaint is a Gift. And I basically synopsize down what they recommend. And we have been using this approach in my business. If ever anything goes wrong or somebody has a challenge with something they've purchased from us or whatever, this is our standard response. But before I give you that standard response, let me tell you what most people tend to do. So if I come to you with a problem, Brad, a lot of times people will say, the person, if it's you, might say, I'm sorry. Well, that's the worst thing you could say initially. I'm sorry, because it puts you in a negative position. And a lot of times people will say, you're darn right, you're sorry. So what you want to do is do a pattern interrupt when someone comes up to you to complain, gets in your face. And what I recommend is first saying, thank you. Thank you, because then I'm sorry, and let's work together. Let me explain all of that. So if I come to you with a complaint, and I've had a chance to think about what it is that I want to talk about. I'm probably angry, got my blood pressure up a little bit, come to talk to you. And if the first thing you say is either defending why you did what you did or didn't do, or you say, I'm sorry, again, that puts you in the wrong position. If you say thank you, it makes the other person go, wow, they actually are interested in hearing what I have to say. And then you don't want to leave it there, though, because if you just say thank you, it can sound patronizing. So you want to say thank you because, and then give a legitimate reason. Because I want to make sure my customers are happy. Because I want to make sure that things are good in your world. Thank you because. And then we want to say, I'm sorry. So for example, we send out millions of these complaint-free bracelets every year, a lot of them to foreign countries. And sometimes they get lost in customs. They just simply get lost. So when someone reaches back out to us, we always say, thank you for letting us know that you did not receive your complaint-free bracelet, because it's important to us that everyone get what they purchased. Then we say, I'm sorry that you didn't receive your package. And the last part is called, let's work together. And that's where you say something along the lines of, we're going to send you another one. Will you let us know when you receive it? Or will you let us know when you don't receive it? The whole idea is to get the person collaborating with you at the end of the resolution.
That's terrific. And I could have used this advice yesterday. I messed up a complaint myself. It was one of those days where I was not in a good mood. Something had happened just before I took this call, and I really messed it up. So, and I really like what you just described. That's a really great, and I make sure my entire staff sees this part.
Good,
right here.
good, because it's so interesting. We have this normal reaction of either defending our position or apologizing for it.
Right.
And instead, we just want to say thank you. thank you, because I'm sorry, let's work together.
Well, and that's that collaboration piece, which is eventually where we got to yesterday, by the way. But that collaboration piece is really the key in the end. I mean, that brings you back both together, working together instead of against each other. So that's a terrific. I really like that take. Well, let's change pace just a little bit. I think these are a little bit fun questions. So and I'm sure the answer to this depends on whether you're a man or a woman, but is sort of what we believe would be the answer. Who complains more, men or women?
People love to ask me that. It's usually men. It's usually men who have a woman standing beside them. Like, so, who complains more, men or women? I actually did a lot of research into this, and there have been studies to see who complains more, men or women, because women have always been stereotyped as complaining more than men. There's this idea of the nagging wife. And a number of studies found that men complain more, and an equal number of studies found that women complain more. But my favorite study, and this is the one I go with, is that men and women complain exactly the same. It's just that men hear women complaining when they're not. Men actually in their heads hear a woman giving sometimes feedback or whatever as complaining, when actually it's neutral.
That's pretty funny. And I guess I'd have to say not surprising.
Yeah.
So this question came in, how do I get my teenager to stop complaining?
Well, this is a bit of cold water in your face, I'm afraid, because what I have found is that, like if I'm doing a speech at a public event, invariably some parent is going to drag their kid over and go, would you please help me get my kid to stop complaining? All they ever do is complain. And I'm sitting here going, wonder where the kid learned it from. Couple of things. Number one, when you take the complaint-free challenge, you yourself, the parent, when you take the complaint-free challenge, you let your child know that you're wanting to create an environment of less negativity. And so they'll probably test you a bit, but overall, they will begin to align themselves with that. The more interesting thing I find is that for years I spoke to a lot of schools and things like that, and we would bring complaint-free bracelets and encourage them to take the challenge. And I started getting feedback from the teachers, principals, superintendents, and teenagers actually will stay with and complete the complaint-free challenge longer and faster than adults. And I think it's because teenagers take it as a game, because the idea is every time you catch yourself complaining, take the bracelet off one wrist, move it to the other wrist, keep doing that till you don't switch it for 21 days. Well, a teenager goes, I caught myself complaining, I better move the bracelet, it's a game, everything's cool, right? Whereas most adults are like, don't complain, I gotta move the darn bracelet, and chill. So I would encourage this person to actually take the complaint-free challenge themselves, get a complaint-free bracelet for their teenager, and see how they do. But the most important thing is don't be a bracelet cop. Your job is not to be a bracelet cop. Your job is not to point out to them when they complain. It's to let them become aware of it through the process.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, I think that's makes a lot of sense for all of us. It has to be you being aware of it, not other people pointing it out to you. I mean, because you have to have that skin in the game. You have to be paying attention. So that's how change happens.
Yes.
Well, listen, Will, I really appreciate, again, your time today. And I know we're out of time, but thank you so much. And we hope to have you back in the future.
I'd love that. Best of luck with your event, and thank you all for having me.
Okay. Thanks again, Will.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
The RMS Climb Checkup is the roadmap to maintaining a healthy pharmacy business. Schedule your Climb Checkup with an RMS pharmacy expert today. Okay, I'm back with a special announcement.
we partnered just a few months ago with a company that you're going to hear a lot about, a company called Giftya. And you're going to see a massive advertising campaign on radio, TV, the internet for their product. And we're pleased to partner with them to bring this product to the entire pharmacy industry, not just our customers, not just our POS customers, but all of you out there in the pharmacy world. And we're going to be marketing this as well. Giftya basically is an electronic gift card program. It's absolutely 100% free to merchants. There is no charge to you at all. There's no charge for the people using the Giftya card in your environment, and there's no charge to you. Rather than me try to describe it, they have a really cool roughly 45 second video that we're going to play right now.
Say you want to send your friend Ryan a gift to his favorite coffee shop in New York, but you live in California. All you need is Giftya. First, open the app. Search for and select his favorite coffee shop from millions of local or national merchants. Then, select your friend's phone number from your contacts. Enter an amount, say $15. Personalize the gift with a fun photo or video. Then select Gift Wrap, which can be unwrapped by the recipient. Finally, type a thoughtful text message and hit Next. Even though Ryan is across the country, he gets the Giftya as a text message within seconds. All he has to do is link it to the Visa or MasterCard in his wallet. When Ryan purchases the coffee, Giftya automatically credits his card with the $15 gift. It's that simple. Send a Giftya, the thought that counts.
Okay, so you've seen the video, you see how simple it is. It is really a cool product. I think it's going to take the market by storm. It's your opportunity to be a part of this before the holiday season, to advertise it in your store, to put and they're going to send you materials on how to do this to make it really successful for your business. We will be sending you a link in Karen's newsletter that she sends out after Climb that will have the information. So you click the link to sign up. It's just that simple. It sounds too good to be true, but it really isn't. It is a really great solution, and I think you're gonna love it. So take action now for the holiday season. Thank you all.
Good morning and welcome to the Overcoming Challenges in Today's Pharmacy Landscape panel discussion of the October CLIMBiversary. I'm thrilled to be here. My name is Emily Kanata. I'm going to be joining today to facilitate this panel discussion. And I just want to start with a few quick introductions, and then we're going to jump right in to our panel discussion, and I'll be asking questions of all of these industry innovators. So to start with me, my name is Emily Kanata. Again, I've been working with pharmacies for the past decade, helping them improve their business in a coaching relationship. So I was asked to be a part of this panel discussion, and I want to thank you, Brad and Karen, for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here. And we'll start with Miss Debbie Larson with Larson Service Drugs. She's out of North Dakota. She has 2 locations. They are family owned and operated since 1952. They still carry gifts, jewelry, fragrances, toys. They do MedSync. I know that they do a lot of counseling as well as pharmacogenomic testing to make sure you're getting the right medication for your genetic makeup. How did I do, Debbie? Anything else you want to add?
That sounds good. Basically, I'm the wife of the pharmacist, so I do everything that he doesn't do. Our store was started by my father-in-law, and my husband has taken it over, and now we have our daughter as well in business with us. So.
Oh, so it's a family affair. Very nice.
Yes, it is.
Great. So we also have Trish White, who's on the call, and she's got her son and husband over at NCPA right now. So it's a family affair up in Alaska as well. And you have 3 locations in Sitka, Alaska, and you are basically your community depends on you quite a bit for a lot of their services that they receive from you. What else do you want to share about your pharmacies?
Well, technically only 2 locations. The one location that we hope to get started soon is going to be a creamery, because we opened a soda fountain back in our store downtown location. Historically, it had a soda fountain in it, and we've decided, hey, wouldn't it be fun to make ice cream? So we just keep adding these layers of stuff.
Complexity.
So currently 2 locations, which seems to be plenty right now.
Great. Okay, thank you, Trish. Welcome to our panel.
Thank
And we
you.
also
Thanks so
have
much.
our fantastic CEO of Retail Management Solutions, Mr. Brad Jones, is on the call today. And a lot of times he's the one facilitating this, but we wanted to have him participate, so I stole the reins today. And Brad, he actually grew up in pharmacy. His parents had several locations, so he's grown up in this industry. It was his first taste of the industry, was from his childhood. Later, Brad started Retail Management Solutions, and originally this company was about training pharmacies how to get the most out of their point of sale systems. And Brad said, you know what, heck, I can make my own point of sale and it'll be the best in the industry. So he's been doing that ever since. And we just want to thank you for putting on Climb and celebrating this 1-year anniversary today.
I mean, this has been a lot of fun, and I really have had a lot of fun with Climb. And I've known Debbie and Trish now for a long time in their stores for a long time. Some of the original RMS customers and power users of our system. So it's a pleasure to have both of you here as well. And all 3 of us have the experience of having family-owned and operated businesses. I mean, my grandparents started the pharmacy my parents ended up purchasing after my grandfather died. So it's been around for since 55, I think. So yeah, we all have these lifelong experiences, and that's pretty cool for this panel.
It is very cool. And one of the reasons why you have to love the independent pharmacy industry.
For sure.
Awesome. Let's get started with our questions. Who wants to go first?
I can go first.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Trish, what have been some of the challenges you've faced being such a remote location up in Sitka, as well as being, a provider of a lot of the services for your community? With this global pandemic, what have been some of the challenges you've had to face this past year?
It might surprise people to know that we weren't doing delivery services to our folks here because we live on this little island and it's small, and seriously, it wasn't something that was needed necessarily. It wasn't something we'd asked our customer our population and our clientele, family, friends, and it's people get out and go to the drugstore, they go to the grocery store. And so that's something we started for obvious reasons. Safety, people weren't going out, they weren't getting out. But we also had a supply issue because a lot of our supplies come through on there's only 2 ways to get them there, by the plane or by the barge. And both of those were having issues with employees. Yeah, it just wasn't easy to get. And sometimes in some cases, we were not getting the plane service that we were getting. We were not getting the barge service. That was scary for the beginning, like in that March and April and May. Then because we do live in Alaska, and because Alaska Airlines is instrumental in providing service as far as safety, they were able to re-up their freighters and stuff like that quicker. So things cleared out pretty easily. But we started a couple, curbside and delivery, which there had never been really a need for before. So kind of a big workflow change.
Yeah, that's huge. And meeting your clientele where they needed you to meet them. That's pretty
exactly
amazing.
Yeah. And that continues to evolve, doesn't it?
Yes, that's exciting. I'm excited to hear about your creamery, and at some point I got to get up to Sitka and try it out. It's one of my favorite things.
Absolutely. You're invited. Thank you.
Awesome. Alrighty, let's go. We'll stick to the ladies first, and we'll save the guy for last. Sorry, Brad. We're taking over first and foremost. So, Debbie, has your approach to front-end management changed in the past 5 years?
Yes, it has. So prior to the last 5 years, I was busy raising children and trying to manage the store when I could. I had really, really, really good people that had been with me a long time, so I kind of let them take care of the management. And the last 5 years, for the most part, I'm an empty nester now, so I decided to get a little more knowledgeable about all the features of RMS's system. That's the POS system we have, and try to automate some of my processes and try to utilize the information a little bit better. It's still a work in progress. I learn something new every day. But that was one of my focuses, is being better at using the computer. And then just being in the store more. I find as an owner, I really think that's the key. You need to be in your store as much as possible and hire awesome people. And I've just been really blessed with good people, knock on wood. That's the key. And then I really try hard, because we're also somewhat remote, maybe not as remote as Alaska, but Western North Dakota. Just try to have a really up-to-date store, you know, full of fun, modern things. We clear out old stuff, and we just really try to have a good selection. I guess that's the key. And tailor it to your customer base, because I have two very different stores. Very different customers. Yeah, so we carry different things.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to do a plug. I know Brad would not pat himself on the back, but I'm going to share some news that Brad has written an article in working with NCPA's America's Pharmacist magazine, and he actually did a really deep dive into front-end success. So stay tuned. That's coming out this month. There's some really good nuggets. We can't share the specifics, but just keep an eye out for that. It's going to be a continuing education piece that he partnered with NCPA on. So even more fun things that you can focus on. Sorry, Brad. Hope I didn't spill the beans.
Not at all. No.
Good.
There's some really good statistics in there, and some good examples too. I think I felt like I was back in grad school actually doing this project. It was more challenging than I realized it was going to be, but it was great fun. So.
That's really good news. If I can butt in, I was just going to say, I think the front end is really the key to pharmacies going forward. We all know the issues in the pharmacy itself, and we just continue to work on our front end and rely on that for margin and stuff.
I'm so glad you said that, because working with hundreds of pharmacy owners, a lot of them just don't understand the value. I mean, that you're actually able to control, right, your front end success so much more than the back end, because there's just, that it's your responsibility. It's not the PBM taking money back, and it's not, inventory issues. So I think you're absolutely right. If you can really focus on that and build that, then you're protecting yourself from all the things you can't manage, all the things you can't really control. So I agree. All righty. So we're going to ask Brad Jones, what are some of the things that you've seen pharmacies do in the past year and a half that are adapting to new circumstances and helping them stay relevant and compete in this crazy industry?
Well, I think, we've spent the last year talking a lot about clinical services, and so I think you're seeing a lot of that. Of course, over the last 18 months, everybody's been adapting to curbside, some more and more on delivery, which I think is an important thing to note about delivery. We've forced pharmacies now to consider delivery at a time that they absolutely should be considering delivery anyway, because of Amazon. Amazon now can deliver next day or 2-day everywhere in the country, and in many places they can deliver same day. Same day isn't going to be taking over Amazon all around the country anytime soon, but it will likely happen. This is a point, an opportunity for pharmacies to jump on that bandwagon now. And I think to be successful at that, you've got to find things from the front end of your business to deliver along with those prescriptions, because we all know that the profit isn't in the prescriptions. So to make delivery where you don't have to charge for it, you're going to have to find something to be able to deliver with it. So I think it's forced pharmacies to start thinking about delivery. The pandemic has, and I think that is a good outcome. But as Debbie, as you mentioned, and as I actually bring out in this article, the front end is that place where you still have control. You control the products you sell. You control the margin you're selling them at. And I think it's really important that, like you were saying, Debbie, you have two different stores and they're very different. And that's what you do have to do. You have to consider your clientele. You may be in an area where you have an upper middle class clientele, in another area where you have a lower income clientele, and you have to carry different products as a result. You have to be very aware of what can sell in your environment. And that's the other thing. You have to be looking at reports to see what is selling, what does sell, and get the stuff that doesn't sell out of the store. So I think those are some of the things that we're really seeing. But I think it's that focus on, and you mentioned it earlier, Emily, of meeting the customers where they are, as opposed to forcing your thoughts onto them. So.
Yeah, and to your point, Brad, I know that this past year and a half has really made people very aware of their health and their wellness in general. And I think that it's a really great opportunity to focus as well on some nutrient depletion, because everybody's wanting to be at their peak of health, like more so than I think we've ever really, people really care about their health now. And because when you take away your health and are wearing masks and, we really changed how we lived our lives. I think it's a really good opportunity to focus on health and wellness and incorporate that into your business. And nutrient depletion is something that RMS has even worked into some of the things that you offer. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, and it's, we've hit hard on nutrient depletion recommendations over the last year. It seems to me to be very low-hanging fruit, high margin items that you can help the customer, the patient, feel better, improve their compliance because they now are taking meds because they don't have the side effects, or the side effects are being offset by the supplements or the vitamins. So I think there's a win-win for pharmacies there for sure, and we've certainly hit that hard over the last year.
Right. Yeah. I think NutriButler is the product that RMS has that just makes it easier, right? Let's make it easy. And I also just wanted to follow up. I know along the lines of having Amazon as competition, essentially, I know that there is e-commerce and Pointy. And that is one of the things that is also something to think about.
Well, yeah. First of all, Pointy is something that Google ended up buying that company, and basically for all pharmacies, really all independent businesses should be using Pointy. Now, we integrated Pointy into the POS, so there's a very simple, immediate sign up, and now everything that you carry, if somebody is looking, for something, a product near me, and you carry that product, they're going to get you. Your pharmacy is going to show up, with your address and your phone number, so that's just an automatic thing. It doesn't cost you anything. So it's a very easy way to get some web presence, and it takes, I think, about 45 seconds to a minute to actually click the sign up. So it's really something everybody should do. And if you're not using our POS, that's fine. There are other POSs that have integrations to Pointy, but Pointy also has a device that they can provide you, regardless of what your point of sale is doing. This makes it easier. The interface makes it easier, but it's something every independent should look into. And then, yeah, we also have an e-commerce solution. And I think that, we'll maybe talk more about that, but e-commerce is definitely another area that all independent pharmacies need to get involved in, just to have that presence. People are used to buying. Don't let your customers have to go to Amazon to buy everything. As soon as, they get used to doing that, you potentially lose them permanently. So you want to, it's time. It's past time to start looking at that.
Absolutely. One other thing that I know you wanted to touch on, Brad, so I'm just going to jog your memory. And it's to Debbie's point earlier when she said she has really great team, right? In turn, Debbie has a really great team because she's a really great employer. And I think that's one of the things that you've probably seen some pharmacies focus on over the past year and a half is being a great employer. Would you want to touch a little bit?
I think what we're seeing in this country right now, this is an unprecedented time. I sat in on a webinar with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce about a month ago where the executive director was talking about a number of things, but one of the topics was the labor shortage, which at that time he said, we are now calling this a labor crisis because the Department of Labor had just announced that there were 11.1 million job openings in the United States, but there were only 8.3 million people on unemployment. So even if all the people who were on unemployment were qualified for those 11.1 million jobs, and they all decided to take those jobs, we would still have this massive labor shortfall. And that's an unprecedented situation. It's never happened in U.S. history. So we have that problem. And I think it's really, really important. That's made it that now you're competing for labor like you've never had to compete before. And that really makes it important to be a great employer. And it's not all about money at all. That's one of the things that's interesting about this. Certainly money matters, but it's not all about money. So people are looking for, especially the younger generation, they want to feel like they're part of a team. They want training. They want to be empowered. They want to feel like what they do matters. And you can accomplish that as an employer through training programs, through team building exercises. One of the biggest complaints I hear in pharmacy from employees when I'm walking around asking questions is that their employer doesn't give them an advanced schedule. That they just, that they find out a couple days before what time they're supposed to be in work the next day. That doesn't need to happen, right? I mean, you should be giving them a month's out schedule because they have lives that they have to plan outside of work. So being a great employer is really, really more important than it's ever been, I think.
I agree. So I'm gonna throw this question out, and any of the panelists can answer it. We just are touching on it now. So with over 50% of workers considering looking for new jobs, how are you going to approach employee retention?
Debbie, what are you doing? It's a challenge. We live in like a rural and small. Yeah.
And you probably have the same setting I have. I mean, I've had employees for a long, long time. As a rule, has been very little turnover other than the high school kids I might hire from year to year. So it's never really been something that I've had to consciously think about. But so far, I'm just trying to really make sure I am a good employer in that I really respect my people and I say thank you. And I recognize if the work environment is stressed, and I try to do what I can to figure out what's going on. Is it too much freight? Is it problems with technology or whatever it is? And I just really try to be aware of how I can affect what's going on in the store. I try to pay well. Being a small business, I don't have great benefits or anything like that, but I think I really try to respect my people. We do get their schedule out a month in advance, Brad. So, and it's part of respecting your people, I think. And we actually use a a website-based scheduling app where people can put in requests for time off if they have a dental appointment or whatever it might be, and it helps smooth everything out. So, and I'm always trying to think of ways to make everybody's job more efficient, which I think just makes it easier for everybody.
Good. Do you have team meetings on a frequent basis?
Not regularly. I struggle with, I never have my whole team there at the same time. And I'm sure everybody has that challenge, and I've never found a really good way to get around that. And I have some that can't come in before work and some that can't come in after work. And so I do a lot of communication through email, and we have a business chat feature thing we use. So I go back and forth. Sometimes there's lots of team meetings, and then sometimes the team, it just doesn't work out. So I think it's a great idea if you could make it work.
Yeah, one secret that I've heard pharmacies utilize is, you have your meeting at, maybe it's like a daily lineup, and maybe you've got it at the first shift, and then maybe after lunch you'll do another one, and it's like a 5-10 minute thing, and you basically keep notes. So if anybody that they want to come in, or they come in at an odd time, they can just kind of flip through and see what was talked about. That's just
right. Yeah,
it's a possibility.
We have a store manager that kind of does the gathering about first thing in the morning. She does that at least once a week, and I'm so grateful for that. And she's been with us for 20 years. It's kind of crazy. I'm so grateful for those management positions. We have the same struggle though, because we have now the soda fountain. So it's usually high school kids, and that's kind of like a definite challenge when you have kids that have a lot going on in their lives. But those are the best ones to get, the ones that are the busiest. But our workforce pool is tiny. It's just a little puddle. And to keep folks, we do offer some benefits, but I think it boils down to three things to me. It's a fair wage, and they want to feel valued. And they want to know what's expected of them. So those things involve training and communication constantly. And you can't really even leave it all up to one person. I can't just hang that on our store manager of each store to take care of that. You have to check in regularly, like you were saying, Debbie, boots on the ground. You have to be there and make sure things are going well, or see what the challenge is for the day, we have such a big influx of business in the summertime generally. We even started to get a little bit back with the tourism. We get cruise ships here, and that just changes our day so dramatically. Instead of the usual 1 or 2 people in the morning and, customers coming in, it's like you land 4,000 people at your doorstep, which is nuts. And they're trying to figure out in Sitka how that's going to work for traffic flow and whatnot this next year, when hopefully things are more normal. But yeah, it's a challenge. So that constant training and kind of incentivize a couple of things. We've had some games before because the younger kids like that. They like flexibility. So being able to say, okay, job share, that sort of thing. We've been open to everything. It's hard. It's hard because it's not what we grew up with and what our work, ethic is. So you have to step back and say, okay, this is not working anymore, to just say, this is your 5-day week schedule. Here, do it. It's funny. So it's definitely changing our attitude about it for sure.
Well, and I think that one of the key factors here too is giving feedback, regular feedback.
Mm-hmm.
The generations today definitely want that feedback, and they respond positively to it, even when it's negative feedback. They'll if it's presented in a professional manner, then they will respond positively, to it. But a lot of people don't give feedback, and they covet feedback. They're used to getting feedback. They're used to getting instant feedback, and that's something else to keep in mind, that we're growing up in a society today now where everything can be done instantly, right? You get a text message, you get it, all of these things can be done instantly, and that's what the younger generations have become accustomed to. And so you need to be providing similar experiences. When they're doing things wrong, correct it. When they're doing things right, make sure to comment on it and to give that instant feedback. So, doing a annual review doesn't work anymore. Now, many independent pharmacies aren't doing any reviews, which you need to start doing as well. But giving that feedback, I think, is really important.
Agreed. Excellent. Okay, got a couple more questions. I'm going to open it up, and then we can answer whoever wants to answer first. So, how do you approach finding balance as a business owner, as a pharmacist, and within your personal life? How do you balance all of that?
Well,
or do you?
I'll start. You don't when you first start out. You just don't. It's funny because like we talked about the different work ethic with the younger generations. Our son just got licensed in pharmacy, and he point blank has said, I'm not going to do it the same way you guys did it, which means we were taking him to work with us and, daycare and night care. And so, looking back on the last few decades, I'm happy he's not going to do it the same way as us, because you have to be flexible. Yes, there's going to be those occasions when you are going to maybe work 7 days in a row and you're going to do 10-hour days or 12-hour days or whatever. But I think this generation is more attuned to that balance than we are. And I think it's going to be easier moving forward. And we've noticed it with our employees. We've noticed it with our own family, how you'll make it up somewhere else. You're going to offset that time by taking a little trip, by doing something, and by gardening, by doing making sure that you integrate that into part of their life. And frankly, the younger generations are better at doing that. So Dirk and I kind of failed at that miserably. However, I don't really have a lot of regrets. It worked for us, but I don't have any hobbies. I do get out once in a while. You have to. We live on this island, but so I think that is a huge challenge, and you have to kind of strive for that. And luckily, I have all my family here. We had a lot of support when we were raising our 2 kids, which now we're empty nesters, and so I know how that feels, Debbie. But yeah, how did you do it, Debbie?
I would say we equally failed. We took our kids, we had 4 kids. We took them to work day, night, weekends, whatever. We worked 24/7 a lot of times, and we still work really hard. So I don't think we have achieved that balance yet. And I agree that I think the younger generation is not going to stand for that kind of life. And they're going to somehow make it work, and kudos to them, for if they can get it figured out, more power to them. Because I do have a few hobbies, and I always made time for a couple activities that were important to me because they were important to my children. So
exactly, yeah.
Probably you did that type of thing too. So in fact, I had really backed off of that since my kids left home. And this past year, I did take on a couple things again, because I'm like, I need to do something different besides just work. So it's a challenge for business owners, I think. It varies for me on the team members that I have. If I feel like things are going really well at the store and they're covering things, then I have more balance in my life. So again, it's kind of dependent on the people that you can bring into your store family, as to how much balance you can achieve, I think. So, and I don't know if anybody else, but our vacations were always like NCPA, or that's how we got to Disney World the first time,
Exactly.
In Orlando.
Yeah, exactly. That's so true.
Yeah. And maybe other people in other industries do that as well. But for us, that was our getaway time. And whenever we go anywhere, we stop and we visit whatever pharmacy we see on the corner and just check them out,
We call that busman's holiday. We do that all the time. The kids got pretty tired of that.
Yeah, but I really found that time really valuable. So, but so that's a tough question, because I do think we've all struggled with that.
Well, and I think that is a challenge as a business owner, period. There's no doubt about that. And what I think is important certainly I think getting balance in our lives is very, very important. But it also is important to recognize that, you want to provide an environment that your employees can have balance in their lives, because they're looking for that, especially today. And you can't let yourself be skewed by the fact that maybe you haven't reached that balance yet. But if you want to keep employees today, you have to provide them an environment where they can have that balance. And so I think that's a very important piece. As you're achieving balance, Debbie, you mentioned having good employees. As you're achieving that balance, I made a mistake a number of years ago here at RMS, where I had I was trying to achieve balance, and I basically, instead of just delegating some of my responsibilities, I abdicated some of my responsibilities, and I stepped back from being the face of the company at trade shows. And that was a huge mistake, a very costly mistake to RMS, honestly, and something I learned from, and won't make that mistake again, because as the owner, you really still need to remain, I think you still need to remain the face of the company. And you may cut back on certain responsibilities in areas where you don't need to be tinkering. Maybe I need to have a talk with Dirk, Trish, but
Sure, please.
but you need to be the face of the company. People need to recognize you. People they know you, and that part needs to remain there. You need to be the visionary. So I think that part's really important, not to make that same mistake that I made.
That's thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. It takes a really strong individual to be able to evaluate yourself and admit that. So thank you for being vulnerable.
I think you're very right about, and probably Trish would agree too, I do a better job of making sure my employees have balance in their lives than I do in mine. If they need a day off, they get a day off no matter what, even if it means I have to put all my stuff aside and go in and work for the day. That's just, I guess, what a compassionate business owner does.
Well, and the reason I'm not at NCPA right now is because we just have been shorthand. It was too much to be gone and leave that in everybody's lap when everybody's been through so much. I mean, here we are with our masks all day long and the plexiglass and so definitely made sure everybody got a break. So there's no way to just leave. No.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have to take a real vacation, Trish.
Oh, yeah. We'll fit that in. No worries.
Good.
Got the retirement plan home now, right?
Jump on that right away. Get those papers signed right away.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's, one last question just to have a forward focus. Are there any new programs or services that you're excited about in 2022?
Pharmacy end of it, we are syncing folks. So that means that you can have a little more control on how busy the day is going to be and your inventory. The pointy thing, fabulous. I mean, we'd like to make some more inroads for that web presence for sure. We are doing a couple more clinical things, since we've been doing COVID vaccination since December. We're coming up on almost a year of doing that. We've added seasonal flu and other vaccines, and that's been keeping us real busy. That's constantly, we have a COVID vaccine clinic every Friday, and folks, now we're working on booster doses, and we're waiting to hear about the third doses and boosters for everybody. So, and hopefully expanding into those younger kiddos. And so that's immediately kind of what's going on with us in the pharmacy. I have to ask Debbie, we've had a hard time, like getting away to buying shows and stuff for the front end has been a challenge. And so doing things online is just kind of exhaustingly boring. It's just hard to get engaged. And I would love to hear, how you're, more about how you're accommodating that.
Yeah, the front end, that's been a big change, not being able to go to shows. In fact, the last thing I did before COVID started was I went to a buying show in Minneapolis, which is our local market. and the PDS conference, the pharmacy conference in February. Those are the last two things, like it's like in the life before all this. But I have found a website that's kind of a distributor that has a lot of different companies, and I've started using them. You can place small orders, and it's pretty easy to navigate, I guess. It is boring. I farm out some of that to my staff because I trust them. So if they want to order a line of shampoos or something like that, you know, I'll let them go through and do the legwork and convince me why we should buy it, and then I'll pull the trigger. Because I've been buying for 40 years now, and I'm kind of tired of making some of those decisions all the time. So I've kind of gotten where I can use the internet a little bit to help me there. I still only have 2 reps who come see me. I don't know if you have any reps at all that come to Sitka. And that's helpful. But as far as our other plans for the front end, I just really want to continue to make sure that my front end looks really good and is full of good product, because I do notice a change in customers that they're really focused on small business right now and supporting us. Along with the Amazon thing, so it's kind of a odd relationship there. Amazon delivery is not as quick here yet as it is the rest of the country. I mean, you know, we used to get the Amazon Prime 2-day. Well, now it's pretty regularly 3-4 days before you get something from Amazon. So anyway, that's always going to be there. And we also live an hour away from the nearest Walmart, which also helps. But I just see a lot of traffic, and supply issues are going to be huge trying to order things. And the hardest thing for me right now is you don't know what it's going to cost you to get product. The freight charges are an unknown on every order you place, and whether it's even going to come in. And I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg on that problem. So got to get creative, I guess.
Exactly. Brad, so I think, were there any other questions? Did anybody else have a question they wanted to ask of the panel? Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you, RMS. Thank you, Brad. And thank you, ladies, so much for joining us today. This was amazing and informative and getting us all pumped for 2022. So just want to thank you, ladies, for sharing, and Brad, again, for hosting. And Climb is such a gift to the industry. Thank you for putting this on, and best of luck in 2022.
Thanks, Emily.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Brad. Nice to meet you, Debbie.
Thank you for
Thanks,
having
Debbie.
us.
Thanks, Trish.
Yeah.
Thanks, Emily. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Have you settled for a limited bundled-in POS because you aren't sure what's compatible with your pharmacy management system? At RMS, we've developed a revolutionary integration portal, and our state-of-the-art POS solutions integrate with over 30 pharmacy management systems. Unlock the door to powerful, cutting-edge point-of-sale functionality, no matter which pharmacy management system you want to use. At RMS, the choice is always yours.
Well, welcome back. Now it's time to present the RMS Climb Ascenders Award. So Climb Ascenders are pharmacies or individuals who go above and beyond for their teams, patients, and communities. Over the past year, we've recognized 11 Climb Ascenders, each receiving an award from RMS, along with a $250 donation in their name to the local educational program of their choice. Today, we would like to announce the winner of our annual Climb Ascender. They will also be receiving an award along with a $1,000 donation made in their name to the local educational program of their choice. To determine our annual Climb Ascender, we actually asked everyone to vote this year, and the results are in. Brad, would you like to announce this year's RMS Climb Ascender?
Absolutely. This is a great pleasure. So out of the 11 monthly Climb Ascender award winners, the votes are in, as you said, and the award goes to Durand Central Pharmacy. Durand Central won the Climb Ascender Award back in April, and one of their pharmacists, Stephanie Hedrick, was also recognized as a Climb Ascender for her work, outstanding work in creating a vaccine program for them in July. So Durand's is truly a community-focused pharmacy business, and they've been a family-owned business now since 1965. And they've managed to grow their business by tuning into what the community needs and embracing wellness programs and clinical services. And, you know, they really exemplify what Climb is all about. So congratulations to all of our Climb winners over the last year, but with a special congratulations to Durant Central Pharmacy and your entire staff.
And my final guest today is another amazing friend of mine, dear friend, Colin Cowherd. And for those of you who don't know who Colin is, he's the host of The Herd, which you can find anywhere. Just Google it. It airs simultaneously on FS1 and the Fox Sports Radio Network. He's all over the internet. Just look him up, Colin Cowherd. Colin is also the author, two-time best-selling, New York Times best-selling author, two different books, You Heard Me and Raw. We're going to be talking about those books in a moment. And if he didn't have enough to do already, he is the new founder of a new podcast and digital media company called The Volume. Colin, welcome. Thank you for joining us for Climb.
Oh, it's great to see you. And we were just talking before we went on about the pictures behind you. Steve Bridge, our high school football coach, and then your brother Jack, who he and I were inseparable in high school. You had gone to the Air Force Academy. You were the smart of the three of us. You were the most willful, aspirational. We were a couple of beer drinking, don't tell your parents knuckleheads. But we had a great upbringing, great life together.
Well, and that brings me to the first book, my favorite book, the best book of all time, probably because on page 3, and my brother's still a little irked about this, because on page 3, it says my brother's best friend, Brad Jones, and his name isn't mentioned anywhere. So it's my 15 minutes of fame. Well, it's forever in fame, right? And I love, it's a story you tell pretty regularly on the air. We're going to tell the story in a minute, but it's a story you tell on the air. And every time you tell it, I get phone calls from my friends saying, did Colin just talk about you? But let's talk about page 3, because what you're referring to is a story I told you when I was 16 years old and my junior year playing football. And you also tell a story about when you were 8 and your dad and the Harlem Globetrotters. So in both of those stories, really of the first 4 pages of your book are about those 2 stories and how they impacted you. So let's start there. Why don't you tell the audience about those stories and the impact?
Well, I grew up in a small rural town on the coast of Washington. And so I always felt very removed from even local pro teams. That was the big city. That was Seattle. That was the Space Needle. That was a science center. That was big buildings. I was a small town kid. So almost like you would go, if you were going to one of those big churches or to watch a motivational speaker, you would be in the crowd and you would look up at Tony Robbins. I felt like I was looking up at Seattle as a small town kid. There was a fear and a curiosity about the big city. I had a very protective British mother who was not going to let me go there unless perhaps it was with your family to a Seahawk game, which I also remember. And so when you're a little kid and the Harlem Globetrotters come to town, or Brad Jones, the brother of my best friend Jack Jones, tells you a story about going into a locker room of then the world champion Raiders, it sticks with you for life. And I had 2 early moments in my life, which I detail in the book, that what you see on television is not necessarily always the truth. That is refined and sandpapered for a higher quality broadcast. And so 2 stories that I heard, the first 2 that I can recall, really showed me, as I wanted to be a broadcaster, that there was a story behind the story. And my dad was an optometrist 20 minutes from my hometown, as you know, Aberdeen, Washington. And the Harlem Globetrotters were in town in Hoquiam. They weren't really, as I joked, they weren't really the Harlem Globetrotters. They were like the East Harlem Globetrotters. We didn't get Meadowlark Lemon, right? So my dad was a workaholic. He picks me up. We rush. The gym's almost packed. We're kind of late. And we pull in to the Hoquiam basketball facility, but we kind of go into an alley, a wrong alley, and in his Buick Riviera. And the Globetrotters, the bus is there. And they're out there like drinking beers, like Olympia or Rainier beer. And I was a little boy, and I remember sitting next to him. My dad's thinking, I could see my dad like react like, oh, crap. He backs out. We get a parking space. We go in. I remember we sat like right in front, but we had good seats, but we were like late, like the game had just about started. And I just couldn't get that I couldn't unsee that. And I'm like, the whole game, as I'm watching them play, I'm thinking, they're like drunk. They're like, they're just, this is just entertainment. Like I was so serious. And couple that with a story you told me years later about you had won something, I think through your grades, you a leadership counselor or something, you had won some award and you got access or something, if I recall, to one of the rewards was you could go before the game, a Seahawk Raider game, into the locker room of the Raiders. And the Raiders had these legendary players, Kenny Stabler, Bolitnikoff, Fred Branch, Cliff Branch, Matuzak. I mean, they were really the bad boys of the NFL, right? And the Seahawks had squeaky clean Jim Zorn and Sherman Smith, and they were so likable, right? And you went into the locker room and they were sitting there smoking and playing cards. And I immediately flashed back to the Globetrotters. And I remember thinking after you told me that story, that if I was ever a sportscaster, that I was going to tell people the story behind the story, that anybody could just say, I wanted access because you'd given me access and nobody else I knew that story. And I got by accident Globetrotter access. And it really framed how I saw the world. That I wanted to tell people, I wanted to work sources and have information and access other people didn't have, because I couldn't be the only person fascinated about that. And so I think my career has largely been built on the belief that storytelling and looking behind the corners and calling sources and being connected. Anybody can have an opinion, but the opinion is more valid and justifiable based on correct sourcing. So we often think of journalists as, people with a hat, a press badge, and a piece of paper and a pen. But I can be a journalist too. It's called my iPhone, and I text and call. I mean, I have a cool phone. I got a lot of famous people on it, and I work those sources. Because I think what separates me from a lot of people is access and information and stories they won't get other places in a very, very competitive business. And so I think it's another example how your childhood can really frame how you view the world. I remember one time, Brad, about 15 years ago, I was at a gym working out. And my daughter was like 4. My son wasn't born yet. And she talked about, this female child psychologist talked about, she goes, the first 6 to 7 years of your life are really valuable. And if you're loved and there's no physical or verbal abuse, your kids are safe. They'll overcome virtually any obstacle. It's to be loved and almost spoiled and there for your kids. And I go back to my childhood and I think of just those early visuals and those early stories, and how even today I have this insatiable need to know the story behind the story. Now, you could argue that I'm jaded or I'm cynical, But I think a little bit of that is healthy in my profession, that don't take the PR firm's word for it. Don't take the politician or the coach's word for it. There is something, I always say, stories only leak if somebody wants them leaked. Like, I've had a lot of secrets in my day, and they don't get out because I don't win if it gets out, and they don't win if it gets out. Stories are out because somebody wants it out. And my job is to figure out who wants that story in the paper. That's the story behind the story.
Well, you know, in your second book, you start off by talking about some things, but Howard Cosell comes up, and I smiled when I read that, because back in the day, I remember in my parents' living room, you impersonating Cosell, and us just laughing our butts off as you were doing an amazing job, by the way, an incredible
Right.
Howard Cosell impersonation. And then all the stats that you knew, which just blew our minds with how early, and that, you know, that was again when we were in high school. So I'm not going to ask you to do a Howard Cosell impersonation unless you really want to. But
I did everybody. I think I impersonated local announcers. You know, it's funny. I don't know of the people watching this. Do you have any the state of Washington pharmacists?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it's so funny because I talked to Bob Rondo. So I told Bob Rondo was the voice of the Huskies for 30 years.
Yeah, sure.
And I used to listen to Bob as I was a college student and write down notes about his pacing and his tempo and his teasing. You'll get a kick out of this because you listened to him for years. And so I had said on a radio station in Seattle how I admired Bob Rondo, and he has no idea, but I literally stole things from Bob Rondo, little techniques. And they said, oh, give us a Bob Rondo impression. And there's not a lot of people doing Bob Rondo impressions. And so I did the Bob Rondo impression, and Rondo was listening, and he's like, that's a really good Bob Rondo impression. So you'll appreciate this. I was a kid. I can remember this. I formation, backs divide. Danny Green in motion, left to right, Humilin back. Up the left sideline, touchdown Washington. And Rondo heard it. And he literally called the station. He said, hey, get Cowherd to call me. So I called Bob Rondo, and I told him, I said, your pacing, your tempo, your staccato style. I'm like, I used to take notes on all these guys. Howard Cosell, indubitably an outrageous claim. But Frazier, down goes and I would watch, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't get rid of those and probably till I was late 20s. So I had impersonated so many people that it was hard to find my own voice until I was 27, 28, because I was doing 8% Costas, 12% Howard, 9% Rondo, because I had so many of these kind of seminal voices. I taped everything. I listened. The way they would talk about confusing situations and be word efficient. So it took me years and years so I didn't sound like an 8% knockoff of everybody I'd ever listened to.
Well, you know, when we talked before, you actually talked about how there were people along the way, every step of the way, that helped you progress in your career. And, you know, and I recall, I recall after you graduated from Eastern that, you know, I'm not sure where your first gig was, but I remember, you know, coming out and seeing you in Vegas when you were the voice of the Vegas, Las Vegas Stars, the minor league baseball team. And you donated those cool hats for my my Boys and Girls Club baseball team.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and you know, and then I think from there, and then from there on to Portland, where you actually started the Herd. I mean, that thing's been going on. You started the Herd, and what year was that in Portland?
Well, I would say, so I've been at Fox 6, ESPN 10, 16. So about 16, so I was there. I would say that was 22 years ago where the Herd, 22 to 23 years ago where the Herd, where I officially named the show the Herd.
Yeah, that's just amazing. But, you know, as the thing I think that caught me was how you talked about how there were people along the way, every step of the way. And I think personality has a lot to do with that, being personable, likable, you know,
that you're really trying to make a difference. So, tell a little bit about that experience.
Well, this would be a foreign concept to somebody who listens to me, because once you go on the air, you are going to be theatrical. I am talking for 3 hours. I don't want to be monotone. So there is a performance art to what I do. You could be Vin Scully. You could be Jim Nantz. There is Joe Buck. You have to know how to rise to the moment, how to make it special. And when I do my show, being authoritative and saying stuff with conviction matters. But I always feel the two things that have driven me is fear and humility. Is that growing up with my dad was a successful doctor, but he was an alcoholic, and it tore my family apart. And there's always been, I've gone to therapy enough to know that I think what drove my career for the first 20 years of it was fear of going back, fear of being irrelevant, fear of being isolated, fear of not making it. When you come from a small town and you don't have a great support system, I think I'm more joyful today. The last 10 years of my career, I've really put my arms around it. I'm much more appreciative and grateful. The first 10 to 15 years of my life, it was a race against failing. I didn't enjoy it as much. Not that it wasn't, I traveled, I loved doing what I did, and the audience wouldn't be able to tell. But I think there's a humility when you grow up in a small town from a broken family, you don't want to go back. And that little 9-year-old boy is, that's always in me. I think the other thing is I'm eternally grateful. I know I live an incredible life. I've got my health. I take my 1 milligram of Propecia because I don't want to have all my hair. I need hair. I do not look good without it. That is the one thing. But, I tell my sister all the time, Marlene, she still lives right by our parents' house. And I tell her all the time, my dad was a doctor. My mom was an honor student. And I'm like, I got their brain power. I got their curiosity. I said, both my kids are curious. I said, my dad was a doctor. My dad's brother was a doctor. My mom was just a thoughtful, funny, witty British woman. And I said, I got a head start on everybody. Like I had really curious, thoughtful parents, and they knew your parents. And I feel very lucky for that. I think sometimes it's the disease of me thinking, oh, I am doing this all on my own. I'm so smart and I'm so successful. And that's kind of the disease of me, which is not understanding how valuable teamwork, sacrifice, luck to some degree, having the right DNA, that you don't have chronic illness. I feel I've been very fortunate. And again, if you listen to me on the air and the bravado, you'd think, oh, please, this guy's, but a lot of that is understanding sort of the mechanism of theater. When you talk to yourself for 3 hours a day, you got to have 1 or 2 screws loose. I mean, it's not normal to talk about. Larry King once, I was on Larry King's show, and Larry King said, he goes, you talk to yourself for 3 hours a day. And I said, Larry, you should hear the other 14. It's even more entertaining. He goes, really? And I said, yes. How do you think I talk all these rants out? I jog, I talk to myself, I drive. So, I just feel very lucky. I guess in the end, to wrap a bow around it, I just feel very grateful and very lucky to be who I am and where I am and the family I had.
But I think that, to your credit, that's about adapting. Yeah. And I think, that's in tying this into our audience a little bit, one of the things that I think all of us in business have to do is adapt. Things have changed dramatically over the last 30 years. They've changed incredibly in the pharmacy world over the last 40, 30, 20, 10, and 5 years. Business is very different. We've been in business for 23 years. It's also changed dramatically.
Yes.
And you're either changing or dying is the way I see it. You're either adapting or you're failing. And so I think business has to maintain relevance and
So, and I talk to the pharmacists about this all the time, and pharmacists about this, and that's what this CLIMB, which stands for Care, Lead, Innovate, Motivate, and Balance, as I told you previously, and that's what this is about, is bringing speakers and guests and panelists that can talk about the things that they're doing to adapt to the changes in the marketplace. I would imagine that you have seen, well, I know you've seen major changes in the media world. So let's just for this, let's discuss that just a little bit. How do you maintain relevance?
Well, my life, like yours and the people watching, we have multiple actions a day. We get up, we go to the bathroom, we shower, we drive to work. The actions of my life are largely simple. They're repetitive. I'm a creature of habit. My life will be shaped, however, by how I react to things. A moody boss, a detour on the road, a schedule gets canceled, a personal snafu, poor judgment. And so I tell my kids this all the time, is your life will overwhelmingly be shaped by how you react to a non-linear, imperfect world. It won't be your actions. We do the same things every day. I mean, literally, if somebody wanted to, if I was a mobster, I'd be dead by yesterday. I mean, I do the same path, the same thing. I'm the most predictable human on the planet. Vinny the Chin, go get this guy on 3rd and Elm. He'll be there at 2:15 every day. But my reactions, I think I've gotten a lot better. And a lot of that is coping skills and emotional discipline. I've taken a lot of cues from the athletes I cover. I think Tom Brady's not the most physically gifted receiver or quarterback, but what Tom is, he's the most emotionally disciplined player I've ever seen. From the commitment to his body, the commitment to learning, the commitment to vulnerability, the commitment to practicing being sacked. His emotional discipline is the greatest I've ever seen. LeBron James is a great example of courage and the willingness to do things that are wildly unpopular and not worry about how they're viewed and not be consumed by how people are going to react to his belief system based on his childhood. So, I when I look at my life and I try to just be curious and watch how people do things, I think the way I've maintained relevance is the ability to pivot quickly. I try to keep my life very simple. I do content. So this is what I do. I produce thought-provoking content. I think about it all day. It just comes down to finding the platform that's growing and discarding the platform that's dying. So I've always thought about this in my business, is there's a lot of noise out there. I try to distill what I do down to one word: content. Be thought-provoking. And I know that my content makes salespeople money and my management money and me money. So I know if I create good content, it will find a home and very smart people will put it on the platforms to succeed. My business changes so often that I used to sign contracts at ESPN, and halfway through the contract, a new platform would emerge like podcasting, and I wouldn't even be getting paid for it. My company would be making money off it. So I started signing shorter contracts because the platform, TikTok, you sign a contract, TikTok, you're like, you don't want to be in a 7-year contract where the company makes a fortune off your image. So I just think, and I don't know the pharmaceutical business well at all, although, I hung around at your dad's pharmacy for most of my childhood, but the ability to, if you really trust your acumen and you trust your values and you trust your brand and your service, just be looking for opportunities to double down on what works, and new stuff works all the time, and discard things that don't. Loyalty is for your family and your children. It's for a best friend. It's not for a product. If it's not working, don't use it. I say this all the time. and I've said this around my bosses, I am loyal to what's working. Not you. My audience may not follow me. I'm loyal to me and the truth and the platform that's growing. And I think in your business, there could be new heart medications out. There could be new services available. I think, and it sounds like, boy, that's cold. It's not cold. It's survival. And we're all playing economic survival in a world that is incredibly fluid now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that, I think one of the things that frustrates me from time to time when I'm talking to pharmacists is complaining about things and not adapting and changing, because there are plenty of businesses and there are plenty of opportunities to succeed. There are plenty of opportunities to make money, but you can't make money the way that you used to make money. And in your case, it's a changing platform, but really in the pharmacy world, it is as well. It's a changing platform. It's changing services. It's just a completely different environment. When we were kids and we were playing in the back room of my dad's store, most of the business was being paid for by cash. It wasn't insurance money and it wasn't government money. People were coming in and paying cash for prescriptions in the 70s. That isn't the case today. It represents like 12% or something of the overall money that is received in a pharmacy is in the form of cash payments for prescriptions anyway. So businesses have to adapt. And so I think that's, the key takeaway that I continually try to push forward and climb with all of the speakers that we bring to the table. So let's talk a little bit about your new company, because this is really about adapting, right? You have contracts with Fox and iHeartRadio, and then you have a new company that you founded, and you have 12 employees?
14. I've added 2 since we last talked.
Nice.
It's a small company. No, this is a prime example. And I had a real barrier here because my network television employer and my syndicated radio employer pushed back on this. But I had a steadfast and strong belief. They thought, oh, it's a threat. Colin's going to create his own company and leave. It's going to dilute our TV audience and our radio audience. If people can hear Colin on his podcast company, The Volume, why would I go to his TV and radio? And I argued the opposite. I argued that if I make myself more available to the audience, they are then deeper invested in me. I can get Colin all the time. Boom. So my network companies thought, they'll peel off us. And I said, no. I said, and I gave them, I tried to simplify it. I said, I sleep for 7 hours a day and I work for about 7. Now that's because I have a staff. It used to work a lot. It used to be a 9 to 10 hour day. So 14 hours a day, let's put it up to 16 for the average person, right? They sleep 8, they work 8. Okay, that's 16, I have 8 hours left. If I exercise for an hour, eat for an hour, nap for an hour, which most people don't, I have 5 hours left. And my takeaway, and I just laid it out for him. I said, what do we do in those 5 hours? I said, we're on our phones. We're looking for content, mostly unhappy with the content provided. So that if I provide more, it will get people more deeply invested into me and they'll listen to all of my stuff more. And that's exactly what has happened in 7 months. My radio ratings have gone up, my television's gone up, and my podcast is growing. So I just simplified it. I said there were barriers, there were doubters, there were critics, but again, the solution was in focus on content, dedication to my staff and my product. I didn't have a lot of money to start this company. This was I pay one employee. I do it for free. As I grow the company, I'm not going to take a salary for 2 years, but it was a clear vision. We believed that we wanted to hire people. We couldn't compete against networks. We wanted to hire people who talk sports, but had really different backgrounds and angles on sports. We hired a woman who was a pro wrestler and a comedian. She's a riot. We've hired, a professional comedian who's a sports gambler. We fired, and it took a lot, but our thing was little budget, pushback from corporate entities, but we're going to create this tunnel that we think is going to make people see a different side of me they've never seen, a little more raw, edgier side. they will not bail on my corporate projects. They'll be more fascinated with me as an entity overall. And it has worked, but it's not easy. There are barriers, there are pushbacks to everything.
Well, and really it's just about more ties, more, more
Yes.
stickiness, right?
Yes,
And
that's exactly
this is
it.
something now relating this to pharmacy. The day of just filling prescriptions, that day that ship sailed. And pharmacies have to do things like clinical services. The more things that they can do to get people to come in the door rather than just for a prescription, that becomes imperative. When you and I were kids, you went to the drugstore for shampoo and deodorant and Tylenol and those things, and you went to the grocery store for groceries. Today, grocery stores carry all those other things. Now, if you don't take medication, then you don't have any reason to go to the pharmacy, right? I mean, you can get all the things you need at Costco or at the grocery store. So you have to give people a compelling reason to come into your business. And and you need multiple points, just like what you're talking about, multiple points of contact. So today, pharmacies can do vaccinations, not just COVID vaccinations, but, pre-COVID, flu vaccines, things of that nature. You can do disease state management, medication therapy management, all of these types of things that you can do, offering to your patients to get them in the door. And every one of those things is an important aspect of exactly what you're talking about. And we've had to do exactly the same thing here. If all we were trying to do was to sell point of sale like we were, 23 years ago when we started, we wouldn't exist any longer. You have to have the multiple places that you're
and it's interesting. I don't know how many of the pharmacists listening would know this, but your dad was really actually ahead of the curve. So he bought the Washington State liquor license. So if you wanted to buy a 6-pack, we spent a lot of time in your store. You also had school supplies. You also had a pharmacy. You also had the shampoos. You also had, if I recall, art or kind of beach art at the beginning to your right, over on the right.
Yeah, right.
You had candy. I remember as a kid, I'd get M&Ms if I went there. My mom would let me, like every other time I went. So you didn't have produce or your milk and your eggs, but we went to your store for a lot more than pharmaceutical stuff, a lot more.
Yeah, and you're right, Colin. Back in those days, he wasn't carrying any groceries, and today he is. He just retired about a year ago and sold his store to another young couple. But yes, he evolved and continued to evolve, and that was, I think, you're right. My parents were constantly evolving, but one thing you may not know, the independent pharmacy world has also changed dramatically. So the day of those really large front end stores, those are pretty limited. You still see that in rural places around the country, but just like here in Olympia, when I started RMS, there were 5 independent pharmacies, and they were all that same size, 8,000 square foot front ends, full inventory of all kinds of things, including school supplies and toys and all of those things. Those days are gone. 10 years ago, all the independent pharmacies here were closed. 5 years ago, there was 5. Now today, there's 5 independent pharmacies again, but this time they're apothecary in nature, very little front ends, and they're doing vaccinations and all of those things, the clinical services, compounding and things of that nature. And they found ways to make money, but they can't compete with the local grocery store and Costco on that front end merchandise. So they've changed and evolved. And I think that's the key, is that you're either changing or you're dying, as I said earlier.
Yeah, I felt that my whole career.
Yeah. So let me ask one more question about your new company, The Volume. We talked about this before too. It was talking about the importance of hiring good people and the right people. So let's talk about that, because I don't think it's really any different in any business.
Yeah. So I got a sports gaming company to fund our company. It's not an exorbitant amount for what is needed. Podcasting is a very unique space. You do not need real estate. You can do all of it on Zoom. So we don't have an office. I don't need an HR person. We also don't need So we don't need real estate. We also don't need a lot of marketing because of social media, Instagram, my Twitter accounts. All my podcasters have those. So we have an advantage. But what we wanted to do, we wanted to have a mission statement as I started this. And I'm a broadcaster, not a business person, but my dad was in the market. He had the Wall Street Journal around, and I have a lot of friends in business. And so I wanted to create a company where we could both win. The pressure was on me, not just the employee. And so we do 1+1 contracts. So you have a guaranteed 1 year. And after a year, you have the right to leave me, or I have the right to leave you. These are not massive contracts. A highly paid podcaster could be $60,000. You hear these media, a big salary for a Jim Nance. That's not what we're dealing with here. And so what it creates is an urgency, is that I have to it forces me to listen to my employees and treat them well, but it also forces them to create productive content. And I really like it. And we've had to be emotionally disciplined. There's people that we think we may not be able to maintain, but it really forces my tiny management team and myself to really be aware of our employees, how they see the world, how they think, and be treated like I always wanted to be treated. Now, I was mostly treated very well by corporate America because I think I brought kind of a unique talent to my space. But, I've told everybody that we're going to treat podcasters like we think broadcasters deserve to be treated, which is allowed to make mistakes. I will be supportive. You are artists. They spill paint. You're not going to be lectured. You're not going to be hauled off to, PR prison. And I think it gives there's a freedom as a broadcaster hiring broadcasters that they know I've made mistakes. We're not here to be punitive. We're here to learn, teach, see the world differently. And so far it's worked. It's been really, really fun. But again, the word I would go back to, you think these are, you would never put disciplined and, creative. We have to be both. We have to be emotionally disciplined to our mantras and our business, but we have to be creative and be willing to allow mistakes. And it's a real delicate balance because broadcasters have their egos and their vanity, and we're all probably insecure who do this for a living. We want to be noticed. And so it's really been fun it's amazing. I don't know how this works for a pharmacist, but it's amazing. One of the things that I did, Brad, when I created this company, and it was really cool. So I talked to somebody about creating this company, and he said, Colin, a lot of people you hire, they may have been fans. They may have listened to you. You've been on the air for 20 years on the radio. And so I thought about that. So what I did with everybody I hired, I got their phone number and I would call them randomly. Some didn't pick up the call. And when they did, I would say, hey, this is Colin Cowherd. I had a couple cry, a couple young broadcasters that I was their, I was who they sat in the back of a car with their grandma or their mom listening. And I wanted to create this real bond with them. I wanted to surprise them and let them know, hey, you're good. You're not making a lot of money now. I completely, absolutely believe in you. And you're going to be one of the first 10 hires for my company. That's how much I believe in you. And I think it's created a real bond with my employees that those were amazing phone calls. They were just amazing moments where you'd hear giggling. Some didn't know how to react. Some would scream, Mom, you're not going to believe who's on the phone. That guy that drives you nuts on the radio in the morning. It was really, I was calling people in Jersey, Iowa, Alabama. It was just this kaleidoscope of the country. And it was really a neat experience for me. But again, I can't compete with networks. I can't afford to. So how do I create this visceral, this emotional bond with these young, talented people? And it's a challenge, but it's been worth every second.
Yeah, I love that story. That's terrific. And I think it really points out, though, you're investing in people that you see some, there's a drive. They have motivation. They're, they love what they're doing. And you wouldn't be doing that. I mean, you're taking a risk too in rewarding somebody. I mean, you have a brand. You, Colin Cowherd, are a brand, and those people can, represent your brand. Just like in a pharmacy, I think, where you talked about this, because you've been doing this for 20 years. Think about pharmacists like my dad, who knew generations of families, especially in rural America, right? And I think it's sad sometimes when you hire the wrong people and you don't get rid of them fast enough, and the damage that an experience that somebody has, a negative experience somebody has with an employee who hasn't been trained properly, who doesn't handle a situation properly, how damaging that can be to your business and that community that you created over a career. So I think, to me, and this is one of the things that I really focus on here at RMS, is hiring the right people. And when you do get the wrong person, which we do take responsibility for, we go, how did we do that? How do we make sure we don't do that again? But you have to let those people move on sooner than later.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's hard. I was talking to a friend who's an NFL general manager of the the LA Chargers, Tom Telesco, and they beat the Chiefs this weekend.
They sure did.
And I'm Tom's a dear friend, so I was just literally so nervous watching the game because they've almost beaten the Chiefs so many times, right? They nobody gives away wins like the Chargers do. And I told him after the game, I just texted him. I'm like, I'm so happy for you. I was a nervous damn wreck watching this game. I became a 9-year-old fan again. And he texted me back and he goes, it's so hard to win. You just don't understand. Sports is imperfect. You need everybody to buy in. And he said, we have this quarterback, Justin Herbert, and he has created, everybody believes in him. And he said, to create a belief system among 55 alpha males, these are guys with strong convictions and healthy egos, and many are 24, 25. They're still forming personalities. He said, to win games like this, you have to have such a belief system. And it all starts with our young quarterback from Oregon. And it goes back to, I think, the pharmacy business or my business. I've worked so hard at what I do. I really believe in my content. I really believe in myself. And I have that inner scoreboard confidence that I don't worry about the noise. That said, I've made mistakes with hires. And
sure, we all do.
Hey, the best general managers whiff. Bill Polian's a Hall of Fame general manager. He built the Buffalo Bills into a Super Bowl team. They went to 4 of them. He built Peyton Manning's Colts. So twice he rebuilt organizations. And I asked him one time, he was very funny. Bill's a friend of mine. I said, did you ever just totally whiff? Like literally you knew instantly when you drafted the guy. He goes, yeah. He goes, I'm not going to say his name, as we drafted an offensive lineman. And by the second practice, Peyton Manning looked at me and I looked at him. And he just goes, I apologize. I deeply apologize for that draft pick. And he said, it's the worst feeling in the world. But some people, they get to the professional level and they're overwhelmed. And that's okay. That's absolutely okay. You'll have players quit. You'll have players emotionally. They shrink in big spots. And you just, Peter Chernon's a very successful investor in my space. And I asked him when I created the volume, I said, could you give me some advice, a nugget? And he said, double down quickly on what works and do not get stubborn with what doesn't. He goes, Amazon started as a bookstore. Netflix started with VHS tapes. Like don't be loyal to what's not working. Well, your job is to identify what is and what isn't, and then activate your response.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's hundreds and hundreds of businesses that have that story. Blockbuster. Look at the difference between Blockbuster and Netflix. Blockbuster saw them, as a rental place, a brick and mortar rental place, and didn't invest at all in digital content. And look where they are today. They don't exist.
Yeah.
and look at where Netflix is. They're
Right.
the biggest creator of original content now.
Yeah. In the world.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, the so well, we could talk for days, I'm sure. I do have to ask this though. Boy, the mighty seem to have fallen over the weekend. Russell and the Seahawks tanked. The Chiefs tanked. Tom Brady and the Buccaneers tanked. What's going on in the NFL?
Well, it's a 17 game season, so you've added a game. And what you're finding is a lot of the teams did not play starters in the preseason at all. So the preseason now has changed. It's almost a waste of time. It really is. I mean, you get to a point now where I've argued for the last couple of years, I would just hold scrimmages, intense scrimmages. Veterans don't want to play. Young players, they don't want to play. And so what happens is September can be experimental.
Yeah.
But I always tell people, Bill Belichick's worst month has always been September. His best month is December. And if you go look at the Andy Reids and the Pete Carrolls and the Belichicks and the very good coaches, this is a process of growth. And there is room with a 17-game schedule to experiment, to play players you might not post-Thanksgiving. My primary concern with the Seahawks is their secondary is weak and you can beat them death by 1,000 cuts. So Russell Wilson is becoming a spectator in the second half of games. He's watching and then when he gets in, he feels that he's got to create something. They may overcoach, overthink, because they feel they're not going to get the ball back if they fail. So then it psychologically affects how you call plays and this sense of we've got to do something special or we won't get the ball back. So I think they'll work themselves through it, but in 3 games, they have been overwhelmed in time of possession. Yeah. When your best player is watching the game and not playing it, that's a problem.
That's a huge problem. Absolutely. So, well, Colin, I really, really appreciate you being here with us today. This has been terrific. I hope all of our viewers have had a fun time as well and learned a few tidbits of information. So maybe we can have you back at some point.
I'd love to. I have no idea. I don't know who I'm talking to. So I'm picturing all these pharmacists in their jackets, literally filling orders. And then they're listening to the sports guy talk as they're filling orders at their pharmacies around Cheney, Washington and Des Moines, Iowa. I have no idea who I'm talking to. I hope I've enlightened them.
Well, I know it's been a lot of fun. I know it's been a lot of fun for me. So it's pretty cool to be on this side of talking to Colin Cowherd and doing the questions and hearing the answers. So I do really appreciate your time and thank you for being on our first anniversary show. So this has been a lot of fun for me. Climb doing this on a monthly basis has just really, I was really nervous about it when we started this whole process. And I think over the last year, we've brought a lot of great content to the pharmacy industry because we bring usually speakers that are very, very well known in the pharmacy world as well as panelists that are usually pharmacy peers, their peers, to talk about the things like we did earlier today with a panel that talked about the things that are working in pharmacy. So it's been a lot of fun, and I appreciate all of the people out there that have made this possible on my team and some consultants that we brought in. And I appreciate all of the people who have really stuck in there and come to listen to our live version and then come back and listen to recorded content. And I'm sure we'll have a lot of people as we post this on the internet. They'll find this and listen to our conversation. And I'm sure there was a few stories that nobody else has ever heard today.
You know what? Let me ask you one question.
Yeah.
The journalist in me. Give me an exciting prescription either on the horizon, that something that excites you after 30 years in this business, that maybe it's an innovation in cancer treatment or something happening in the pharmaceutical world that excites you, that you see either just entering the business or on the horizon. Tough question, huh? That's why I'm a journalist.
Yeah, you might have given me a heads up on this one, Colin.
That's funny. And hey, I've tried Viagra. You can't use that as an answer, okay? Whatever.
Well, I think I think that the exciting things for pharmacy and as we continue into the future, both on a technology side and so you have the technology side that is continuing to offer all kinds of new solutions, and I think there's a number of innovative things that are happening on that side. But I think the biggest thing is really on the clinical services side, where pharmacies have this amazing opportunity to interact with their patients much more directly and really have an impact on the outcome of their health. So using wellness programs and disease state management, these are things that they've been around now for a little while in pharmacy, but
Right.
pharmacies are starting to get paid for them. But they're also starting to realize that if they start doing these things, they bring to the table those sticky points that you're talking about.
Yes.
That bring more patients in, give them a reason to be there, and there's all kinds of things that they can make money off of once they've done that, and that creates a loyalty to the pharmacy. And I'm a technology guy, and I love all of the things that are coming down the pike in the technology world. But really, when it boils down to it, it's human interaction that matters.
Right.
It's not technology. Technology can lead you and give you some additional things that you can do, but it's all about interpersonal relationships. And that's what makes all the difference. So, I mean, as a technology guy, I love the idea of using more and more of our technology. But all we are is conduit to help you with that personal interaction. And it's all boils down to the personal interaction in my mind.
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever going to change.
No, and it's interesting. I had a little health scare about a year ago, and I've done several of these Zoom calls either on my phone or in this space. And it's amazing the quality of care I've received from everybody in the medical profession, pharmacists down. They really, I know LA is a big city. That's where I live. People are in a hurry, but I have been struck by the decency and the genuine concern. I'm always blown away. It's like America's very best. I'm just blown away. If you look at the stress we have put on our medical profession due to the pandemic in the last 2 years, and the service to me is better than it's ever been. The quality of people is remarkable. And they've never been more stressed. They've never had more chaos and obstacles, but it makes me very hopeful. I know there's a lot of cynicism and, if you listen to the media, the doom is near every corner. But in the world in which I live in the last year with my little physical scare, I am so encouraged by the quality of healthcare in America.
Well, I think, and I'm going to add to that too. We have to be careful about listening to the media, right? And
Right.
you bring that up in your second book, honestly. You talk about that, and I think one of the things, and I know we were about to end, and now we're not. Now we're going down a different path, but I think this is an important path because when we have information overload now, you now have social media that it can be in your face. Everything can be in your face 24/7. And then we have the problem of confirmation bias. So now when we as humans, we naturally have that problem. But now you have computers, algorithms, Google, that are actually
feeding
the things that they think you are going to be interested in. And so now we're hearing more and more just the things that a computer thinks that we should be reading. And so I think you're right. I think that we hear a lot of negatives, but I'm not sure that the negatives are nearly as bad as they may not be any worse than they've ever been. It's just that now it's in our face all the time.
Of course. that's a great point, is that, I've said this on the air. Most people still like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, a glass of milk, and to watch TV at night. That's how most of us are entertained. You think everybody is watching Netflix and they're paying for all these cable. Netflix's penetration in America is like 18%. Most of us watch sports on cable or have a favorite show on ABC, NBC, CBS, as most of us live very habit-formed lives. We like simplicity. We love our dogs. We love our kids. We have friends. Our teams drive us nuts. We love to be loved. Nobody likes to laugh. For me, a good steak with a buddy and a big laugh that's never changed in my life. Is that there are books written about this, that the choices confuse us, but simplicity is where we generate most of our happiness, in the things that we rely on, that we trust, that we've known since we were 20 years old, 15 years old.
Yeah. No, I wholeheartedly agree. So, well, once again, now we can wrap up, and I know we've kept everybody over, but I hope you really found this fun, and I certainly did. So thanks again, Colin. Appreciate it. And good luck. Yeah, good luck in your newest venture.
We'll talk soon. Send my best to everybody. I'm so proud of you. Not surprised at all.
Same
but
to
it's
you,
just great,
my friend.
Just great.
And let's get together in Park City.
Let's do it. That I like. There we go. Right.
Okay. Thanks again, Colin.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Batch multiple prescriptions into a single bag in Will Call. Then scan one barcode at checkout. No forgotten prescriptions, no wasted time, and best of all, Will Call by RMS is crazy easy.
Thank you all for attending today's Climb event. Keep an eye open for our Climb newsletter that's going to be coming from Karen. We'll have some links to extended interviews with our guests from today, and you'll also see some links to our other Climb events. Please take a few minutes to share those Climb events with your friends, families, and colleagues. Feel free to share the videos and check us out on the Pharmacy Podcast Network as well. As you saw in the registration email for today's event, we have some great giveaways. Karen will be reaching out to those winners today via email as well. Our After Climb today will be a deep dive into advanced gift with purchase, hosted by Brad Jones as usual. And coming up in November, we'll be really devoting our climb to e-commerce, online presence and marketing just in time for the holiday season.
Yeah, and I just want to add my thanks, first of all, to my amazing staff here at RMS and all of the people that have made Climb possible for the last year. This is a huge team effort and a huge production behind the scenes. And I think we're if we aren't scrolling right now, our thanks to those people. We will be in a moment. But it couldn't be done without a lot of people in the background. And I'm going to call out Karen Deckard in particular, who works tirelessly on making all of this possible. So, and then thanks to all of you for sharing Climb with your colleagues and being here and coming and seeing what we're producing. So we also can't do this without you and your support. I'm excited to see all of you back in November. I want another shout out about looking for Gift Ya. This is a huge opportunity for small businesses to do something that costs you absolutely nothing, gives you web presence, gives people the ability to easily send a gift card on your behalf to somebody that they know that can be spent in your store. It doesn't cost you anything except maybe about 3 minutes to sign up. So you'll be seeing that link in Karen's newsletter as well. And then here in a moment, I will be back with After Climb. Thanks, everybody. Welcome back. In this version of After Climb, I'm going to talk about advanced gift with purchase. Now, last month I talked about customer loyalty, and in that conversation I talked about how customer loyalty is really more about marketing, about getting people excited, making your store an exciting place to shop, than it is really about a computer system. But the computer can play a role. So that's what I'm going to show you today. I think that tying advanced gift with purchase in with loyalty is really a great way to go. You'll see some really cool ideas, and then I think the sky's the limit. Your ideas, your just brainstorming thoughts and ideas, you really are, the sky's the limit with what you can do with, again, advanced gift with purchase. So let's get started. I'm going to go into advanced gift with purchase, and rather than start walking through this first screen, I just want to start over here under rewards, and I want to talk about what these different rewards are, because I think just to get you in your mind what you can do, let's talk about what kinds of rewards you can offer. So the very first thing you can do is you can offer customers a coupon. This coupon would be something that they would bring in, it would print or be given out at the register based on what they've purchased, but this is something you would give for them to come back in the future and submit this coupon for either amount off or a % off. And I'll go through the details in a moment. Another one to do is an entry form. So you can do this where at the end of the transaction on the receipt paper, it prints an entry form that can be just dropped into a box for a drawing at some point into the future. Simple as that. An item discount. This is real time. So during the transaction, at the end of the transaction, if they qualify, you can give them a discount, either % or amount off. A gift card. This ties into an actual credit card, gift card company. Only a couple of our customers actually use this gift card program. So if it's something that you think you might be interested in, you can ask us about it, but I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it would just give you a gift card. Bonus points. This is something where at the end of the transaction, bonus points can be added to your loyalty amount for that transaction. Free items. Free items, something you can give away right there at the till. You can either give away a specific free item, or you could create a list of 2 or 3 items that the person can choose from, and then the clerk selects which one they've chosen. You give them that free item, and they'll still take that item out of inventory. And then BOGO, buy one, get one. So you have all of these different options of the things that you could do to reward your customers. So let's kind of just go through. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the different setups. There's a tremendous amount of functionality here and a lot of options. So again, your imagination really can rule what you do here. I'm going to show you a couple of ideas. The first one, the simplest one here, free gift. Okay, so let's just talk about when you set it up, put in a description, you can put in a date range that you want this to go through. I've, in this particular case, just gone through all the way into 2023 for a couple years out. I just want this thing to be going on for a long time. You choose the price matrix, depending on what you're using. I'm just going to go regular price matrix everyday customers. And this is where you can tie in the loyalty level. So you can make loyalty, and that begs the question, do I have to use a loyalty level? No, you can use advanced gift with purchase with everyday customers, not just loyalty members. But if you want to do something extra special for loyalty members, it gives you that capability. So in this case, I've said I'm using my gold, platinum, or silver loyalty members, no bronze loyalty members, and no just everyday customers that aren't a loyalty member. Okay, and then I won't go through every single field, but I'll talk about priority in a little bit. But then I said that for the free gift, they have to have at least $25 in purchases in this transaction to qualify for the free gift. Now, I will note over here, you can do some really fun things, like you can have something a Tuesday afternoon special. You can actually set a day and you can set a time range. Remember the old Kmart blue light specials back in the day? You can do things like that. You can see here that you can set up a recurring day, and you can set up the day, and then you can even put in the time range. So give you just some ideas on things you could think about. But in this case, we're just going to be very simple. Then up here in exclusions and inclusions, the way you can think about inclusions and exclusions, if you want to just include everything, then you don't have to do anything here. It's any purchase they make that gets to $25 or more gets them this free gift. But in my case, I said I want to only look at a specific, I want to include only a specific area. I'm going to say it's cough and cold season, and so I want to give out some free Kleenex if they buy $25 worth of cough and cold items. So you'll see here it says fine line selected. So when you talk about inclusions, you can do departments, categories, fine lines, barcodes, vendors, barcode range, where you do a range of barcodes, the product filter, or even a promo event. But I'm going to look, and it tells me that I've already selected a fine line. So I'm going to look over here under fine lines, and I'll see that if you purchase $25 or more in cough and cold, then you qualify for the reward. Now, if you might be in a situation where you want to do everything except a specific thing, maybe everything except prescriptions. They don't qualify. So that's where you might use exclusions as opposed to inclusions. And you just choose whichever is going to be the easiest for you. Then we go to rewards. And we'll see here under free items, I had put in some Kleenex, of just one particular Kleenex. You can click here and add more items. You can search the items by barcode or by description. So if you know which items you want, you can just scan them in here at this point. But I'm just going with this one item. Okay. So in this case, let's just go ahead and see how this looks at the till. So I'm going to go over to the till. And I'm going to scan some cough and cold items. Oop. There we go. Now I have to have a loyalty member, so I'm going to pull up a customer loyalty member. And I'm going to choose Marie Abernathy because I know she's a silver member. You can see that down here as a reminder at the bottom of the screen. Marie Abernathy, silver member, 1,516 points. And she's going to get 28 points, 0 of which are bonus points in this transaction. And I'm going to do F1 cash, so she meets the threshold of $25. And it's going to come up and tell you, congratulations, the customer's has going to get this free gift. And again, in this case, it's defaulted to the free gift that's on the screen. If you had multiple free gifts, you could just scroll on there and choose which one she chose. In this case, you'll notice that it rings up the free gift for free. So it's taking you out of inventory and showing that you gave it away. Okay, so I'm going to now go back to the loyalty program, or to the advanced gift with purchase program, and let's look at another option. So in this case, I decided I want to do a promotion. I'm promoting Nature's Bounty vitamins and supplements this month. So I've actually put in just for this month, again for regular, and then this applies, I'm applying it to gold and platinum level loyalty members only. They have to have a $20 threshold. I don't have any exclusions. In my inclusions, I have included that they have to be buying $20 worth of vitamins and supplements to get this Nature Bounty promotion. So now is where it gets a little more interesting. So I've done two things here. And so let's start with the easiest of the two, the one that applies to the most people. So in this particular case, for the item discount, they get a 20% discount No exclusions, but a fine line inclusion. So if I look at fine line, we'll see, okay, they get a 20% discount on any vitamins and supplements that they purchased, not just Nature's Bounty, but any vitamins and supplements that they purchased if they had at least a $20 threshold. Okay. Now, that one's easy, so that doesn't just tie to Nature's Bounty. Where Nature's Bounty comes in is when I do the coupon. So with the coupon, I can actually print the coupon, in this case, at the till, so it'll print after the transaction. And I can put on my logo, and then I can put in text. Congratulations, this coupon gives you 10% off on all Nature's Bounty vitamins and supplements on your next visit. So now I'm tying it really to Nature's Bounty, and I can also say how long it's redeemable. Now I said 30 days. You can put that out to a year if you'd like, whatever you'd like to do. So here is where it gets a little bit more. So in the original inclusion, it was everything, every vitamin supplement. Now in this particular case, I'm actually looking at a barcode range, which is all of the Nature's Bounty vitamins and supplements. So if they want to get the coupon, they're going to get the item discount regardless, as long as they met the $20 threshold on vitamins and supplements. To get the coupon, they actually have to have purchased $20 or $25 worth of Nature's Bounty, and then the coupon is only good for Nature's Bounty items in the future. So that's how that works. So you can actually have multiple rewards in one gift with purchase event, and you can change the rules slightly if you want to hone in on, for instance, a specific product, which maybe, or specific product or groups of products. So you want to give everybody 10% or 20% off for buying vitamins and supplements because you're promoting those, and then you're further promoting a specific brand of those vitamins and supplements. That's just one idea. You don't have to do it that way, of course. So now let's go and take a look at what that looks like at the till. Okay, so now I'm going to scan some Nature's Bounty products. And so now I will select customer. And I know this person is a gold member, so she'll qualify. So she's a gold member with 3,117 points, and is going to get another 49 points on this transaction. So when I cash out on this one, it's going to come up and say customers eligible for two things: a coupon for 10% off on the next purchase, and then 20% discount on the selected items. So when I hit enter here, what will happen is the selected items will all get the D for discount. So you've seen this before. If I had something that wasn't Nature's Bounty, or excuse me, something that wasn't a vitamin supplement, you wouldn't see a D here. But that's how it shows up. Now on the receipt, remember, anytime you get a discount, what'll happen on the receipt is it'll show the regular price, the discounted price, and the savings for each item. And then at the bottom of the receipt, it says the total savings on the transaction. And then at the end, it would then print this gift with purchase coupon award on a separate piece of paper. Okay, so let's just go take a quick rundown of gift with purchase again. So if we go back over here to general, we set up, we can go, when we add, we set up this part of the parameters. The way I think about it though, when I'm trying to decide what I want to do, I think about what I want to give before I set up anything. So what is it I'm trying to give away? Do I want to give a discount at the till? Do I want this thing to happen right now so the person gets rewarded right this minute, or do I want it to be one where they have to come back to get the reward? And that's really just that's the starting point. And then once you've done that, then you come and set the criteria for that award. Now, here's where priority comes in. You'll notice that this was priority 0, priority 1, priority 2. You cannot have, a person cannot get multiple gift with purchase rewards from multiple events, okay? So what it does is it looks by priority. So when the person, it looks to see, okay, what's the first priority? Priority 0 is the first priority. You could change that to priority 1 and have no priority 0. You go 1, 2, 3. This is kind of a software coding thing from the past, but whatever you want, prioritize them. The system will look and say, which is the first priority? And it'll look at that one first and see if the person qualifies. If they don't qualify, it'll go to the next highest priority and it'll look and see if they qualify there. And then it'll go and just continue to follow that way. The very first one the person qualifies for is the one that gets used. So the only way to have multiple things, multiple rewards, is to have them built in to the same advanced with gift purchase event, which I did in this example. So that's what that is. And we talked a little bit about this. And really, that's the basics for advanced gift with purchase. It is just an opportunity for you to do some exciting things and promote very specific areas of your pharmacy, as well as, create some excitement around your loyalty program. So if you're interested in this, it is a module but it is part of customer loyalty. So if you have customer loyalty, then you have advanced gift with purchase, and if you, from that point, you can hit F1 help down here. It'll take you through and walk you through all the details. But obviously, as always, if you have any questions or need any assistance, just call in for support and we'll be happy to help you. I hope this was helpful and have a great day. Thanks.